As we begin the council meeting of the 5th of June to deliberate the long-term plan 2024-2034. We have apologies this morning for lateness from Councillor Carey, and Councillor Bentley will be joining us on Zoom. Happy to move that. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Deputy Mayor Swales. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Carried. We then move to declaration of interest. Any changes to our declaration? Can you please let Lisa know, or myself? And we now move to the public forum. We have 5 people who wish to speak this morning, and first of all up is Fabian. Welcome.
Reminding to hand out first. I know there were quite a few people here who, just while they're leaving, who can't be here today because of work commitments, cost of living crisis, and all sorts of things. You tell me when you're ready. Okay. So I'm here today with my wife, supporters, and with the voices of 2,225 who have signed this petition. On the 14th of April, by chance, we happened upon a Facebook post which spoke of a 20% rate rise. Looking at the information online, there appeared to be no opportunity for consideration of the rates increase. The petition was a way that we, the community, could have a view and a voice opinions on this important matter. From a simple idea, the petition has become much more than a petition. It has shown how strong the community is, how focused and aware they are about what is going on, and how much they are willing to fight for their homes and their livelihoods. It's time for this council to take a hard look at what is being proposed and stand up, be transparent and accountable. In October 2022, Mr. Guppy stated he had to build a strong team that works constructively to implement the council's long-term plan. This included councillors having to have buy-in to the concept of what you want to achieve. In my opinion, you have to have buy-in, you have to have trust. To have trust, there must be honesty, integrity, accountability and transparency. Recently publicised events have shown a propensity for our council senior manager to be anything but. Our CEO states that he believes the background, length of service and local government will be valuable in continuing to deliver good services to our community. I do not have the staff nor the time. Does not reflect this. Credibility must be brought firmly into question. Our mayor has overseen the books and the city for 20 plus years. In my opinion, he was well aware of the pressures and upcoming challenges. Ultimately, the council's financial mismanagement should not be the ratepayers' issue. On the 18th of April this year, I sat with my wife in Mr. Guppy's office, where he calmly stated if we had known about the economic climate that we were going to be in 3 years ago, we would not have gone ahead with H2O. Yet over the years, the reports that have come out from council were talking about financial challenges, media about impending warnings, and there was every opportunity to go back to the community and confirm the direction with the new financial landscape. I have not seen any evidence of this happening. When looking at the submission summary which the council produced, I am surprised there isn't more highlighting the confusion, frustration and desperation of the community. Simply looking at the yes/no questions doesn't give a full picture. It's only when you align those with the comments is there a clear link to the answers made through the confusion, frustration and sheer desperation to save money. The council summary of submissions seems very light on themes such as community hardship, or that people are making it very clear they cannot afford these hikes. In 2023, this council kept its commitment to keep rates increases under 6%, 5.81% in fact. My opinion is that the council knew what was coming. It knew the challenges and has misled the community to save face over the 6% rate cap. Even though the council was aware of the situation, it continued spending, increasing debt and stress on our infrastructure. For example, H2O cost and its associated impacts on water infrastructure to fill the approximately 49% more water space. In a time of water woes and blowouts, which have been active for years, I believe this is not the most prudent choice. Now, before you say that was what the community chose, if you have given someone 4 options around what they could get, they choose, and later on you said because they chose, it meant they couldn't eat or would lose their house. I call that misleading, even deceitful. How is this keeping the best interest of the community front of mind? With 2,225 signatures in this petition, along with 127 that I've seen in the council summary, it's a strong message to council that the community do not agree with the proposed rate hike and are calling for accountability. You have been chosen and given the privilege of being elected to this council by the people. You are responsible, accountable, and trusted to put the interests of the city and its residents in front of all decisions which are made. You have the power to listen and to challenge the decisions that are made and to act for all those in the community who have trusted you with their voice. It's time to stand up and be accountable for not only the past mistakes, but also the current challenges, and not to send the city down a path of ruin.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. I just wondered what projects in the long-term plan would you be happy to see cut?
There's several projects I'd like to see cut. I've made some of those in my submissions. I'm concerned that there are projects in the long-term plan which are proposed but yet seem to be started already. I understand that some of them may have come from 2021, but the information in the long-term plan documentation doesn't state that, and it's not clear. So I'm happy to talk about it afterwards, about what could or should be cut, but that's my personal opinion. And I think the questions that were asked in the consultation process weren't the right questions, my opinion.
Yeah, Councillor Carson.
Thank you for that presentation. My question is, of the 225 signatures on the petition, how many are Upper Hutt ratepayers?
2,225.
Did you?
I cannot verify who are specific ratepayers, however.
Sorry, you've answered my question.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Paul. Our next presenter is Fabian.
Can I provide you with this
Yep.
petition?
Table them there. Yep. Thank you. Yep.
I have asked the same question, Carson. How many?
It's Councillor Carson, thank you.
How many put out the LTP that were rates passed? Right. Speak up. Big voice, please. We ready? Yep. When does the time start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. A quote. It is wrong if there was a man suffering altitude problems and he was huddled under a rock to just lift your head up to say, good morning, and pass on by. Human life is more important than just getting to the top of a mountain, said Edmund Hillary. This petition that we brought today holds 2,225 signatures. They are concerned people, whether they are ratepayers or not. They are equating to 13.2% of households in Upper Hutt. Do they deserve more than just lifting your hats? I think so. Many now preparing to lose their homes and what they have worked hard for, inflicting stress and uncertainty upon many, even angst, with the potential of 3% rate increase. I ask, how can this council honestly expect to make decisions on the LTP set out to cut funding to our community and ways to cut spending and give their ideas when the LTP has not been transparent and is even confusing to our council, mayor and CEO? This is unjust and unfair in my opinion. 12 months ago, 5.81% rates, all was good and prior documentation backed it up. Yet 12 months later, we are facing over 3% rates. Yes, you heard right, over triple. The question has to be asked, what on earth happened? The community needs and demands accountability. They demand transparency. Our mayor has been in charge of the city for 24 years. In 2022, he ran for mayor and his flyer said, low rates and don't mess with success. Does that include an overspend of H2O? What water money spent on floodlights, triple rates? Forgetting some of your team when making decisions they have the right to be a part of? One of your councillors, when asked about finances at the LTP, were required, and I quote, and I apologise for my language, yep, it's in this shit, literally. Our community is struggling to get extra funds, and thanks to the submission 381, we may have an avenue. Briefly touching on this, Gillies Group say no to the development contribution policy. They explain it would cost them $12 million more for 2 stages of Wallace Estate, effectively double dipping, they called it. Yet on the 8th of May 2024 at a council meeting including NZCIS seeking council to apply for an $800,000 funding to the Flores Trust for grandstand seats. This was NZCI's second attempt to get council to apply. Is this not double dipping? Should council not be applying for our community, not entertaining time on grants for multi-million businesses? Especially when the LTP clearly shows our community groups are struggling, facing funding cuts, and Upper Hutt is facing over triple rates increase. One has to bring into question whether the rates increase is necessary if these development contributions are explored. Our mayor's perception seems to be a little off key from recent quotes in the media. 3rd of May, our mayor quoted, the LTP having a $10 million minor error. 24th of May, Wellington water error increased, cost by $1.3 million, causing our mayor to say, beyond belief and just incompetent. What is H2O blowout then? On the 18th of May, our mayor again was quoted, this time with the community is not angst, only more engaged. After a poll, this was proven he was out of touch with his city. Then the council turns off comments on the council page, with the community trying to find answers on a flawed LTP. People's questions were being ignored or deflected. Brochures, which were stated had been delivered to all households, our street is still waiting. Transparency, that's a joke. I referenced the meeting and letter to the Minister on the spur. When not a few months ago, this council were instructed not to have closed meetings by the Ombudsman. The CEO stated, we strive to be as transparent as possible with the community throughout all consultations, he said. Then when errors were found on the LTP, he stated, staff were devastated by the errors and accepted it had negatively affected the credibility of the council. His efforts to ensure this community was treated with respect and rebuild the trust fell short of the Local Government Act 2002 when he refused to respond to requests for information. This, in my opinion, unacceptable when council had asked the community to try and understand and respond to the LTP. I believe that when we are paying our CEO $321,694, we deserve answers. There are too many issues with information, clarity, honesty and transparency. And this community has clearly let you know where it stands on your proposed rates.
Any questions? No questions, thank you. Our next this morning is Simon McGruer. Simon.
Morning, everyone. Right, so I'm here in support of the petition to stop the massive leasing in Upper Hutt. I've read quite a bit of the feedback and the submissions and forum of the petition itself, and it's pretty overwhelming rejection of the rates rises is the feeling. And much of the feedback concerns transparency and accountability around the rates rises. And I agree that there should have been more information about the reasons driving the need for the rates rises. There's widespread concern at the 20% per annum rises over the next 3 years, and that many will be unable to meet these demands. Okay, so I think in order to proceed with the rates rises, council first needs to inform the public where there is a need for the rises, or why there is a need for the rises. And then the information given to the public, I think, has kind of been a bit lacking. This booklet, which I think is what everyone kind of refers to, it's light on numbers. It's like, to get clarity in context, public need to understand why the numbers have blown out from one long-term plan, 2021 long-term plan, to the 2024 long-term plan. I couldn't follow it, so I went into the documentation behind it, 300-page documentation, and started scraping out information from the financial statements so that I could put it into Excel myself and play around with the numbers, so that I could then get a feel for what were the specific items which were blowing out. And I don't know if you've got I sent a thing in yesterday, and in there on the second page, basically there's a table there. I've grabbed this table and I think it's something like this, which has just got raw numbers. You can see what was proposed, or what was the plan in 2021, what was the plan in 2024, each of the items. People can then see what the changes are specifically, and they know what the percentages are, and it focuses the mind and it focuses the attention on what the blowouts are. And this document doesn't have anything like that, and I think it's a failing, because it would clarify for a lot of the public, why are the rate rises required? You would see, oh well, it's because of blowouts in certain certain expenditure. I would point, for example, if you were to ask anyone in Upper Hutt, what is the expenditure going to be for that H2O extreme pool over the next 10 years? What are the rates that are required for that pool? The answer is $93 million. And I don't think anyone out there understands that. They don't know that. If you read through this, it's not stated. Even if you read through the documentation, the consultation documents, it's not stated. The only way you find out is if you go into the financial statements and you've got to actually physically add them up. That's why when I scrape the data, it's very useful, because I could do it, pretty quickly. But this information should be available to the public. The public should have this information, because if they don't have this information, then they're blind, really. And this document is called Making Tough Decisions Together, this book. But if the public is not informed, if they don't know the magnitude of what's going on in front of them, how are they really being engaged with, clearly and on an equal footing? If you look at this table, there's lots of things I could talk about, time permitted, but the numbers that are blown out are really concerning. The ratepayer is going to be paying $56,000 over the next 10 years on average for each ratepayer, the average amount. 3 years ago, it was $34,000. So that's the magnitude. It's gone from $34,000 to $56,000. Why is it blown out? Well, if you had the information like this in here, the public would understand. I don't think they understand. I don't think they understand. So that's all I want to say.
Son, any questions for Son? Councillor Newell.
Simon, I really appreciate, thank you very much for coming and presenting this in a constructive and polite manner. So my question for you is, what, if you were sitting around this table, what decision would you make about H2O, given that we are partway through the process of construction?
Well, I'm not in that position, and I haven't stood on that platform. I haven't raised my hand to stand for council, so I'm not in that position. But what I would do as a councillor, or as a member of, as a member of Upper Hutt, I would say, I think that the council needs to provide information to the public, which is clear, understandable, and available. Not something that I don't know how many people would go in and go, I'm going to go and scrape this data out of your financial statements out of a 300-page document. No one's going to do that, right? And I don't even know whether you guys know what I provided you. Did you guys even know that yourself? What is the council organisation providing as information to you, and what is it providing to the public? Because I think this doesn't really cut it. The public, I think, it was hard for them to understand what was going on, and therefore, when they hear about these rate rises, the natural thing is to say, I don't understand why these rate rises are required. They don't understand. I don't understand. I didn't understand. I can see the numbers now. Doesn't mean I understand why the numbers are what they are. That's a discussion that needs to be had. But I don't know if it has been had because, well, the numbers weren't there in front of the public in the first place. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Deputy Mayor?
Thanks for coming along and providing us with your spreadsheets. I do pore over the previous 3 LTP documents, and you're right, it wasn't easy to find, but now that you've peeled out the information and you've looked at the stats without probably knowing the rationale of why, where do you think we should be striking the rates, knowing that you've seen the numbers?
I would
You're saying
say
2020 is not
well,
good.
the problem is the public haven't had a fair go at engaging with. You guys you've had consultations with the public, but if this information's not in front of the public in the first place, how do they then go along and say, oh, I want to talk to you about the swimming pool, I want to talk to you about the rise in the water, the various water, the 3 waters, or I want to talk about why has expressions gone up by 14 million? Why is, they can't do that because they don't know themselves. It's not available. So that's my key thing.
And I take that on board. I absolutely do. But going back to my original question, now that you have looked at the numbers and have some sort of understanding of what they mean, where do you think we should strike?
I would, if I was in this position, I would apply the rate rise from the 2021 long-term plan.
Yeah.
And I would give yourselves 12 months to come up with a new long-term plan to present to the public. And that buys you a year. And when you present it to the public, it's got to be, in a way that the public can engage with it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, my problem, I can see what the numbers are, right? But I don't know what makes up the numbers. Just because I can see what the numbers are, it doesn't mean I've driven down and gone, okay, well, swimming pool's 93 million now. Okay. Well, it might be completely legit, right? I don't know what the financing costs are. I don't know what the insurance costs are. This might have all blown out. I don't know what the construction costs. Maybe I don't know. So I'm blind as well. But without having the initial, clarity of what are the driving problems? If you go, well, H2O, that's $40 million. But I mean, the number overall, it's about, what is it? It's about $450 million difference between the last long-term plan and this long-term plan, extra spending, 450 million. So what's making up that 450 million? And then when you know what that is, then you go and investigate. But I couldn't say, you know, I couldn't say, and unfortunately I'm not in that position. So.
Councillor Carson.
Thank you very much for that presentation. So I think it's a repeat from the first submission that you did, but very well set out. Thank you. Would you like to see, therefore, in the final, if we went to go ahead with that long-term plan, as is, would you like to see in that long-term plan, which will go to audit office for auditing before it's finally approved, an explanation for those increases?
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Because then the public knows, right? The public can go, oh, okay, that's why that number's that number.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Simon? No, thank you.
Your worship, can a member?
No. No. We'll just move to extend the public.
I'll second.
Seconded by councillor Swales. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, no. We carry. We now move to Stephen Pattinson, who is on Zoom. Stephen, are you there?
Yes, thank you.
Morning.
Good morning. I don't have video, but I can hear you guys.
Yeah.
I've asked to speak this morning because I used to assume that if the council made an announcement or a decision, that the whole council made that decision, that all the councillors knew about it. But we learned about this letter that was sent by the CE to the ministers of the Fast Track Approval Bill, and discovered afterwards that the councillors did not know that the Mayor and the CE had written to the ministers and committed the council to putting a road through the spur to open up the southern growth area in support of GTC's application to be fast-tracked. So I no longer can assume that when we hear that the council is doing something, that the whole council has actually been involved in that decision. And so the reason I'm speaking this morning is because we made a request, my wife and I made a request to the CE about a month ago to have the flood mapping corrected on our property at 27 Elmsley Road. We got a response from the CE this week declining our request. I've asked some questions back to the CE, asking what the council's view is. So this needs to be addressed not just to the CE, I'm addressing it this morning to the full council. And it relates to the Pinehaven flood modelling, and in particular the flood modelling and mapping on our property at 27 Elmsley Road. Now, when we tried to find out in 2021 long-term plan how much the streamworks were costing, it had blown out at that stage from 10 million to 30 million, but your long-term plan said that you were spending 15.6 million. Your current long-term plan says that you're spending over the next 10 years just 2.7 million on the streamworks, and yet I've just learned from the Greater Wellington, the Te Awa Kairangi River Valley Subcommittee minutes that it's now 60 million. It's $60 million for the Pinehaven Streamworks, and our property, when we went to one of the early consultations, open days, we were told the flood problems on our property would go away when the streamworks were being done. And now we're getting absolutely no benefit from this 60 million. In fact, the majority of Pinehaven is actually getting no flood protection at all from this 60 million expenditure. And so we've decided it's time to stop tolerating this false flood map on our property and to get it fixed. And we did. We've gone to the expense of surveying, employing a hydrologist, a flood engineer, preparing a 100-year flood map and supporting information. And we presented that to the CE in a meeting on the 2nd of May and asked that the false flood map on our property be retracted and replaced with the information that we've provided from RJ Hall and Associates, which you're all familiar with because I've presented to you often enough. It shows flooding, your maps show flooding 70 metres wide on our property, but a correct map shows the stream channel actually in the correct place, not 8 metres out of place like your maps do. And it shows a 100-year flood being contained within the stream channel and no flooding over the lawns. Now, that's been refused. And so I'm putting the question now to the full council, to all councillors, because I can't assume that you know that we asked. And my questions to the CE were actually, I want to know the full council's position on these 3 questions. And I'm just going to read the email that I sent to the CE yesterday, but it's addressed now to the full council. Dear Mr. Swainson, thank you again for the opportunity that we, that's my wife and I, had to meet with you on the 2nd of May and provide information to you specifically relating to replacing council's seriously flawed flood hazard map for our property at 27 Elmsley Road with the site-specific flood hazard map and supporting information by RJ Hall and Associates. We're not satisfied with the response, and the reasons are, first, critical information that was not disclosed by council flood expert from Becca at the Plan Change 42 hearing was that equal pre and post development rainfall losses in SKM's future case scenario flood modelling. Now, I'm not going to explain that here. I think you understand it. Basically, the baseline flood model for Pinehaven already has something like the Guildford development built into it. And that is why when it was compared with the Guildford development flood model, there was no difference. And SKM claimed that the Guildford development wouldn't make any difference to flooding in Pinehaven, but the reality is it'll make a massive difference and put many people at risk, many properties and people at harm. So my question is, if this information had been, now this is the problem, is that the Becca auditor, your expert, did not disclose this. He knew about it, and so did Greater Wellington, and so did NWH, and so did SKM Jacobs. They all knew about it, but they did not disclose this critical information at the Plan Change 42 hearing. They did not disclose it at the Pinehaven stream improvements hearing. It was concealed. It was kept away from the public. It was kept away from the commissioners. And if it had been revealed, then the outcome of the Plan Change 42 would have been that the flood model is fatally flawed, not fit for purpose, but fatally flawed. So my question to the council is, the first question is, does the council condone concealing critical information to subvert due process? Because that's what happened in Plan Change 42. And if you're not going to correct the flood maps on my property, it suggests to me that you condone concealing critical information from the public in order to subvert the due process and have false flood maps on our property and on many properties in Pinehaven. Second question, at our meeting on the 2nd of May, I understood you agreed with me that there is no 100-year flood hazard on the berms, that's the lawns, at 27 Elmsley Road, because the model depth of water on the left and right berms is all well under 100 millimetres deep, mostly less than 20 or 30 millimetres, and even as little as 0 to 2 millimetres. This does not warrant having 300 millimetres of freeboard water put on it, creating the impression of deep flood hazard 70 metres wide across our property. Question. Second question. Does council...
Stephen, you'll have to sum up. You'll have to sum up. Time's up.
I want to finish, please. I've got one more question.
Well, you could do one last question.
Does the council condone the misuse of freeboard to create the false impression of flood hazard on our property? And the third question is simply that the commissioners at both Plan Change 42 and the Streamworks Improvement all acknowledged that the flood modelling was only indicative catchment-wide. For the catchment-wide situation, it was not necessarily correct on individual properties. And we've gone to the trouble of employing all the experts and getting a site-specific information for our property, and your council is refusing to correct it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Is there any questions?
Do you not recognise the opinion of experts who are employed to do site-specific work? Now, I've said to the CE, and I'm saying to you, if you continue to refuse to do this, I'll have to take this up with the Ombudsman's office.
Any questions for Stephen? No. Thank you. Thank you. And our next this morning is Mary Beth Taylor.
Your Worship, just before, could I just say, Ross Brown is standing outside, and is that, are we short of a seat for her?
We'll swap over. Yeah.
I would go.
Come on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, or he's gonna go out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll say that.
Okay.
You know, we can't start without Roz. First, I've sent you some material. And I owe GTC, Guildford Timber Company, some thanks for exposing through their long-term plan submission, for exposing the deficiencies, the illegal actions that have happened, that have overridden my councillors' voices. And I thank Councillor Swales for your letter today and for making sincere efforts to bring both the mayor and the CE back in line. We are all in this chamber, you're all elected by the public. You are public servants, every single one of you. Not one of you is more important than the other. All your voices are equally important. And when you have people taking rogue actions like that, I expect to be seriously brought into control again. So first it was that submission that exposed the fast track letter that blindsided everybody. And unfortunately, you had to find out about from the public. Now you've got GTC with their Plan Change 50, the rural rezoning coming through. And they have further exposed that Upper Hutt City Council has already directed millions of ratepayers' money into engineering the conditions to facilitate their proposed development, which is out of scope with all the recent legislation, incidentally, above Pine Haven. Okay. They've said that the planning for the infrastructure, quote, to support GTC has been undertaken already at the plan change level via Plan Change 42, the stormwater. And for that very reason, the fact that that is expressed in that way, I believe, like Steve Pattinson and many of us do believe, that those maps need to be looked at again. I think that we owe the public that service. That's $60 million that may be down the tubes if Guildford doesn't get their subdivision off the track, on the way, and that's just not right. And also they cite the proposed plan change 49 areas one to provide infrastructure services, roading access, utilities, etc. to the southern growth area that council's already provided. That is what they state in their submission, Plan Change 50. Read it. And provision for growth related infrastructure, the water reservoir, the sewer stream bridge, and the pipeline for them. So our council is working. How can those decisions be made? How can they say things like this if it didn't actually happen in secret meetings, which is what happens in this council? That won't happen again. But now the truth is out about the Plan Change 42 flood maps, and they must be independently reviewed. They present an over-engineered model to accommodate the huge amount of storm water that will be generated by the thousands and thousands of dwellings Guildford plans to build above Pine Haven. The valid and persistent questions on Plan Change 42 over many, many years, and we just heard this again in Mr. Pattinson's submission, they remain unanswered and the levels of frustration hit the roof. The mayor's solution, how is this treated? Ignore, discredit outspoken individuals and ban them from council. This is not how you deal with a problem that's persistent and doesn't go away. You owe these people to review it and get to the bottom of it. So with mine to the LTP, I believe no more of ratepayers' money should be headed in their direction at all. So this means that for me, the Silver String Bridge replacement, that off the table. Now that bridge replacement will not be really required until the St. Pat's land comes on and they're building there. And that's going to take up to 10 years of fill. They've got a couple of years under a belt, then you've got your design, your planning, your building. So you've got many, many years, maybe 15, 20 years before you're even going to need to look at that bridge. So just eliminate that, because that, of course, would highly advantage Guildford. We don't need to, it's not a good relationship to have. They keep talking about the southern growth area. You can see my notes. There is no such thing anymore. They are pushy, they're demanding, they are manipulating. Stop it, stop pandering to them. Especially people in this council that may have a personal relationship, maybe neighbors with these people. Just stop it, okay? So the relationship I see and many people see with between Upper Hutt and GTC has become quite toxic. It negatively affects our economic, environmental, social, and cultural well-beings in this city. When was the last time our city was really peaceful? When was the last time we trusted the mayor? Because we don't, we know that. And that carries over to you guys.
We're not here just
When's
to,
the last time we trusted this council? GTC is in the middle of a lot of this distrust and disharmony in Upper Hutt, and this has to stop. So there must be consequences for allowing and encouraging this situation to develop in our city. And I know Councillor Swales has made a start. Maybe it's a compromise. But this has set our city up for some real tough times. And the flood map, 60 million. Okay, so other LTP suggestions? Putting Guildford aside, because this is what we really need to do. Don't overindulge them. There are a lot of other players in town. I really strongly believe with the LTP that we should be bringing ourselves up to step with Lower Hutt and charging for some parking. This does not mean the mall style parking. This could be even gold coin parking, $1 per hour. We could figure out a way that we could make this work. We could have a scale in the middle of town that shows how much money we're making from this, almost a levy, a community levy. But this money would need to be directed back to the community, back to the community services that are being brutally cut out by this LTP. You can do this, you can figure this out. Okay, gold coin, everybody loves gold coin. How many thousands and thousands of cars are in the city every day? So that's, I think you need to pursue some idea around that and delay all non-essential project-related spending, including all the intersection upgrades. We can move around pretty well and well enough. I like the idea of delaying the long-term plan, by the way, maybe saying 10% increase this year and then giving yourselves time to communicate better with the public, working a little bit more closely with the public, not dictating to the public. And audit all the renewals programs. There's some money in there for rural roads. See, I'm so cynical now, I'm thinking rural roads. Okay, so Guildford's gonna grab some of that money to get their subdivision up Averill Road, and then there they go again. Because there wasn't enough detail in the long-term plan to tell us where is that money for rural roads going. Okay, you need to stabilize and limit growth. Don't put growth out there constantly as your election policy. Okay, don't put flash projects out there, just try to get more votes. No, really settle down. There are a lot of degrowth
you need to sum up now.
organizations
Fine.
in the world that are talking about degrowth because we have overshot. We know we've overshot the capacity in our own community. We can't even keep the pipes going. So, and the last thing is, because Tony can't be here today, is try, and maybe some of our gold coin parking could do this, or maybe something else. Make a start on a cap policy. We have discovered the kiwi. We've heard the kiwi in 4 areas in Upper Hutt. So do the things that are really important. All right? Be honest. Work clean. Don't be pushed around. We need to get ourselves back on track. We want an audit relationship, an open relationship. Do not defend bad behavior, councillors. I'm speaking only to you, not the mayor and the CE. Do not defend bad behavior and do not support poor
Any
leadership.
questions for Mary Beth? Councillor Ultra?
Thank you, Chair. I just want you to talk about in the LTP suggestions, repair, resilience and catch up on growth. What resilience ideas would you support?
What do we have problems with? Water and energy. We met over on Pine Ave to inaugurate the wonderful weather station, Daniel Talbot. And it was brought to our attention that one of the roofs on the school was covered with solar panels. That's the school. I'm looking at all these roofs around here. And I'm looking at the Mongaroa peatland for a solar farm. And microgeneration, I showed you a film about that. You have to start thinking in those ways. And water. Where are the water tanks? Where are the toilets flushing with stormwater? We're living in the past in this council. You guys have got to pick it up. You know, you need to make these changes or you're going to run out of everything. And the community is running out of patience. Thank you for your question. There are so many ways I could speak for hours on resilience.
Mary Beth, thank you for coming along and thank you for sending your papers so that we could read it last night. I have a couple of questions for you, if that's all right. With regard to resilience in mind, I know that the Silverstream Bridge could be viewed as a double-edged sword, but from a resilience perspective, surely we should have two access ways, should an event happen out of the upper Hutt. And one of them would be Silverstream Bridge and the other would be for everyone south of the city to go to Parkbridge to get out of the city, whether it was north or south. So weighing that up and being aware of that, you still think that we should not do the Silverstream Bridge?
No, not now. No.
Okay.
The Silverstream Bridge, I'm convinced, because of what Guildford has put in their PC 50 submission, is for their benefit. They're going to have, you know, if they get the medium density up there, which is what they're looking for now, you're not looking at 2,500 homes. You're looking at 3,500 homes or more. Okay, so they're looking, and they have assumed they've got council in their pocket about this Silverstream Bridge. No, there are 4 different modes to get out of this town. I mean, there's our public transportation, our buses, our trains. There is that bridge. There's State Highway 2. There's the Eastern Hutt Road. There are a lot of ways. It is risky, but it's not the biggest risk this council has taken. The biggest risk is losing the trust of their community.
My second one is, I'm not sure whether you're aware, but I'm competing with parking issues down in Petone, and any revenue that comes from that has got to actually be reinvested in roading. I'd love to be able to divert some of that money, but actually the reality is if we put in paid parking, then the money or the revenue from that would have to be invested in footpaths, roading, things like that. But I do.
Well, maybe you can try something different. Maybe this would be a community levy.
Yeah.
Something the entire community, the Gold Coin, could get around to buy back some of their community grant money and things like that. I think that might go a way to build trust.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, we now move forward. Thank you for the presentations. We now move to the adopt the council minutes relating to the long-term plan, the council minutes from the 13th and 14th. We have a mover. Happy to move. Seconder, Councillor Griffiths. Any items to be discussed? Then all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Second, no. Gee, I'll do that as well. Yeah. We move to the council minutes of the 13th and the 14th, which we'll also table. We need to table the submission of Save Our Hills.
All right.
We'll table that too. Okay. And happy to move. We have a seconder. Boldness. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Been carried. And now we move before we start the deliberations. We have the report from the Acting Director of Strategy. And is there any update, anything you wish to add on your report?
No amendments I'm aware of.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Now, what I'll do, how we'll work through this is work through the major funding decisions we have to make, and then at the end we can come back and go over anything else that we need. Okay. So with the documentation, you'll know that each of the areas have all been lumped together with the submissions we can go through, and we've worked through 639 submissions, and we'll come back to those. But we'll work through the first of those decisions we're going to make is activation. and the council agrees to reduce activity funding for activation as we were consulted on. Any got all those submissions there? Any further discussion on the funding for activation?
You wish to pause for a
Yep,
second?
so you find them? Yep.
Yeah.
On page 177, it's the papers.
One eighty.
Oh, 187, right, page, sorry. I've got
Yeah.
the one.
Yeah, just.
You see there the proposals that were offered, that we talked about in the long-term plan.
Okay, so we're going straight
Well, what's,
to number 7, as opposed to.
yeah, we'll come back
Oh,
to those, we'll just work through the other areas where we're talking about
thank you.
decisions
Yes.
and whether we reduce or stay in or increase. And what we consulted on and the feedback we got was that council agreed to reduce activity funding. So, a large number of feedback we had, both in support and opposition.
I'm happy to go with, worship with what the summary of, the consultation documents, which says that 49% want us to reduce and 32 said no, not to. So whilst it's not a overwhelming, it's giving us agree that, 59% of the submissions did submit on this and 49% actually said that we should remove this.
Any further discussion? Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, I'm happy with it too. I think the idea of doing less active delivery, as long as we're still focusing on that empowerment and enablement, is a good balance. And so, yeah. So
Okay, so any further discussion? The council agrees to reduce activity funding for activation as was consulted on. Do we have a mover for that? Moved by the Deputy Mayor Swales, seconded by Councillor Carson. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no.
Aye.
Was it?
That was a late night.
That was an aye. Sorry.
Is it- oh, well done, Dylan. Sounded like Dylan.
Was it? I wonder where it came from.
he's in the
Okay, thank you. That's been carried. We now move to look at the decisions on the city marketing and events. And the consultation there was to reduce activity of the city marketing and events. That again is on page
118.
188. And again, we had a variety of views. But obviously, a lot of support to continue on with Santa and Anzac Day. With the number of submissions in, any comments, questions?
Your worship.
Yes, councillor Bentley.
Regarding city marketing and events, I'm actually going to propose vote against the reduction. I think it's one of these things that it's easy to stop now, but in a few years we'll want to kick it up again, and you lose that momentum, and you lose your kind of presence in the market. And I think so many businesses out there are doing it tough, and so if council can help them promote and like bring visitors to their businesses, we're actually helping the wider economy. So it's more of an investment in their growth rather than, I don't think cutting it is the right decision, so I'll be voting against the reduction.
Further comments, councillor Griffiths?
If we voted not cut it, what's the implication, the financial implication around that? What sort of a great difference does that make? Can you give us an indication of that?
For you, worship, the bed reference is on page 19 of the document, and it is 0.5% of the rates increase.
Councillor Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would only agree with Dylan if we stopped it for the 3 years and then continued on after in the 4th year of the long-term plan, because the impact of the increase 0.5 on rates would be substantially less because of those years from the 4 onwards. The rate increase in the long-term plan is substantially lower than the first 3 years. So that would actually safeguard Dylan's concern that once we stopped, we wouldn't reactivate or find the money to replace the event. So I would propose that we terminate do a proposal as is for the first 3 years and then recontinue from the 4th year onwards in the long-term plan.
Further comments, Councillor Newell.
Yes, Your Worship, the thing that we seem to be forgetting is that this is not just about the actual money that we give out. It is about the cost of assessing applications, meeting costs, staff time costs, in putting all of these things together. So to suggest that it's just the money that the public sees is not really, to me, understanding the full impact. And my comments also apply to the community development grant. It is not as simple as it seems when we've got staff time, accountability time, assessment going on in the background.
Councillor Carson.
Well, I dispute that, Councillor Newell, because those costs of staff time and all the timers are below the line costs. They're already accounted for in the budget and the expenditure of the councils. They don't increase expenditure whatsoever. We're talking about saving money here in order to prevent any further increase in the rates. You heard from the Director of Finance, Risk and Digital Solutions that it adds 0.5 to the rates. If we didn't accept the proposal. So when you talk about staff time, etc. costs, that is not correct. They're already budgeted for. They are called below the line costs and are not additional costs in determining marketing and events. So I completely disagree.
I have a couple of questions for the officers. So do we still pay that regional fund where we collectively pay into Wellington NZ that promotes us as a region? Is my first question before I talk to this.
Through you, worship, no, we do not.
No, we don't. Okay, so we scrap that. So my issue is I have another question for the officers. So if we were, when I look at the proposed reductions on page 19 on the consultation document, where we talk about, delivering and funding advertising through social media, videos, promotional material, if we click that to touch, but still look at, because I know that it doesn't take much to multiple share any events on a whole host of different platforms like Hutt Valley NZ Tourism, Hutt, which we all have and we would do in Wellington NZ. Does that come at a cost, or because we do have a comms team that could populate anything that we produce on a number of different platforms, and that's only one push of the button really, because you can do that. What would it cost if we held on to that, which still kept Upper Hutt as a destination or a point of destination? Would we still be able to do that?
Through you, Worship, I guess the approach to what is proposed is a reduction in activity. It is not ceasing activity across marketing events, so it will continue at a reduced scale through the kind of collaborative efforts and more facilitating, enabling that you're describing. So again, similar to other activity reductions, it's based on less direct delivery and funding, but more sort of collaboration and enabling and partnerships where appropriate.
Can I So in actual fact, then maybe that second bullet point, Hutt Valley NZ tourism, is not quite actually the true picture of what we're actually going to be doing. Because when I look at what we planned on doing, this plays an integral role in increasing engagement in Upper Hutt City Centre, parks, reserves, communities, and tourism offerings. So we will still be multiplying on a number of different channels. We won't not be doing that. Okay, just wanted to make sure that I'm quite clear on what I'm supporting and what I'm not supporting.
Councillor Whelan?
Thank you, Worship. I'm in agreement with Councillor Carson. I think we don't want to do away with it totally in the next 10 years. I think 3 years is actually a perfect timing. And I think with Councillor Bennett as well.
Councillor Altford and Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, through your chair. I'm just wanting to know how much movement we have in annual plans to add in events or reactivate funding for specific items for that year.
Really, Worship. That is something for council to consider each year at the annual plan. That is the purpose of the annual plan, is to look at what's in the long-term plan and adjust or change as needed once desired. So that ability is definitely there. And just to add, Your Worship, again, this activity is not being ceased or stopped. It is being reduced for the next 10 years.
Further comments?
I'd like to amend the motion.
So we have that agree to reduce activity funding for city marketing event as consulted for the first 3 years to be reinstated at year 4.
I'll move that.
Do we have a second for that? Councillor Whelan, any further discussion? Councillor Griffiths.
Through you, Chair. Just wondering, we're looking or talking about holding the line around the first 2 years and looking at adjustment in the third year. Would it work to go into that third year instead of waiting until 4?
Well, it will have an impact. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, I was. Thank you for the questions. I'm very sorry. Because my question was going to be, would you like it back and out? And get forward, how do you want me to ask for it?
Yeah, my understanding is, Councillor Carson, you want to reinstate it at year 4.
Year 4. Yeah.
And
Yes.
So, deliver the proposals, year 3, year 4 is 9.72, and so that would bring it up to just over 10%. 9.5.
Sorry, given the cumulative period, it would probably be slightly less than 0.5, but.
Councillor Newell.
Yeah, Your Worship, can I just get some clarification on what Councillor Carson said previously? My understanding is that to actually make the rates at the level that we are, the 19 point whatever it is, that we have to make operational efficiencies to reach that target. And I am just unclear as to if we're going to be putting things back in, things that we've already talked about, how will the operational efficiencies be reached?
Worship. The operational efficiencies need to come financially in years 1, 2, and 3. And then if council wishes to put costs back in year 4, we can do that. Those costs would impact on years 4 to 10 rather than years 1.
Yes, but I'm asking about all 3 of these particular issues on the agenda. When the activation,
Just have to employ more staff.
city marketing and community development.
Any additional costs will require an increase in rates in the year that is. So if the council wishes to add costs to year 4, then there will be an increase in rates. In that year.
At year 4.
Yes.
Plus, if we go.
And must go forward.
Councillor Holderness.
Thank you, Your Worship. I mean, I think we've had an overwhelming thing this morning saying that people are not wanting to have an appetite for increasing them, actually kind of decrease them. I'm not going to be supporting putting it back in to year 4. I think that we are supporting some of the major things. We're not as the Director of Strategy, Partnerships and Growth, so we're not getting rid of it completely, some of the activities. What we're doing is reducing in scope. And I think we can be really, I'm sure the team can be really efficient in terms of how they're looking at things and targeting things, come up with really creative ways to still fulfill the needs of the community, but without adding costs at the moment. So I won't be supporting that.
Deputy Mayor Swales.
Having reread this and some assurity from our council officers that it is a reduction, but we still will be populating, then I will be supporting the reduction, because I'm very aware that as we go down, there is going to be some pushback about other things that are popped back in the budget. So I think we need to be cognizant of what we want, where we want to push, and where we're prepared to compromise. So I will not be supporting this if people want me to support something that's going to come up later.
Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to clarify. I've got a question and comment. Well, I don't support the year 4. I support just continuing the marketing. Happy for the events fund to stop, but I think we should keep the marketing in there because that's the crucial piece. I just had a question for the staff. When we say we're reducing, what does that look like in real numbers and like staff levels? So does that mean how many we go down to 2 staff or 1 staff, or how many hours a week will people be working on this?
Through Worship, the reduction of operating costs is a job for the CEO. It wouldn't be prudent for me to get into describing what staff activities will be undertaken at this time.
No.
2 reasons, and one is we have more work to do on it, and the other, as I say, is we do not understand what staff members will be doing with their time at this point until we have decisions from this room.
Well, sorry, I was following up on that then. How can we say that we will continue doing it if we don't know what staff time will be on it? I don't think we can. I don't know if I can make an informed decision if we don't know what level of service we'll have post reduction compared to what we would have. Like, we know what we do now, but what does it look like post reduction? And that doesn't seem that clear.
Through you, Your Worship. I mean, all I can say is it's outlined on page 19, and we will, as part of the reduction of operating expenditure, be looking for guidance from this room on the allocation of staff time and activities.
Okay.
Worship, I just want to go back to page 19 where it says, at a reduced scale, we will continue to support local events and business ventures through our My Apart social channel and new microsites, and to support the council with the creation of marketing material to promote council activities for the community. So rereading that and then having some assurances from our officers that they will still be populated where they can to these other sites, I'm actually quite comfortable to support what went out in the LTP consultation document.
Okay, any further comments? So we'll vote on the amendment first. The amendment we do have agrees to reduce activity funding for city marketing events for the first 3 years and reinstate in year 4 of the long-term plan. We have a mover and Councillor Carson. Do we have a seconder, Councillor Wheeler? All those in favour say aye. Aye.
Aye.
To the contrary?
No.
Show of hands. All those in favour? Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Against?
And Bill? No.
Against? Okay, it's been carried. Okay. We now move to item 9, which is the funding decisions we had and on community development. And again, we had a large number of responses on community development, on the community development grants. And we've agreed to reduce the funding for community development, but there was some, sorry.
Can officers have a point of clarity, please? Is the recommendation in 8 is A and B?
Focus on H.
We need votes on B.
B, sorry, discontinue the Ints Fund too.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you for the clarity.
So again, but we were to continue looking at continuing grant funding the 140,000 in response to the consultation feedback, and to then ask us to review and amend. Councillor Carson.
Just one clarification, please. I'm presuming we're reinstating it as from year one in the LTP, but before we issue the advice to the community that it's open or whatever, or we make whatever decision on the grants policy, that decision on the grants policy is made in the year 24-25, right? And then whatever happens after that, we then institute the policy. Because it's not clear, because later on it says do it from the 25-26 year. So my presumption was this: the question is, are we reinstating the 140,000 in year one, 24-25, and at the same year we're developing and amending the current grant policy?
That was my understanding. Yeah.
If that's the case, I'm happy.
Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Worship. I'm in agreement with all three recommendations there. I think community grants is the lifeblood of our volunteers in our community. And I do like the third option where we have grants policy. So agreement with three, thank you.
Councillor Griffiths, then Deputy Mayor Swales.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm in support of Councillor Wheeler. I've sat on this for a long time and I've seen the impact that it makes in the community. Was saddening to see the option of removing it. While I support the intent of removing it, but the rates drop as low as possible. I see that the impact of the rate on this will be very, very low, and the benefit to our community will be a heck of a lot higher.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Swales, and then Councillor Bentley.
So my question is, and it's about clarification about what one of my colleagues said. So we will ring fence money out of that 140K for particular organisations. Is that the organisations that came and presented, like Wellington Ambulance, Free Ambulance and CAB, and make it so that they get a surety that they will get their grant for 3 years or just a year?
Well, my understanding is that the amended policy will come back and that will be part of the discussion. Is that?
Yeah, through you, which we'll bring up later to the council. And it will be part of that discussion around ring fencing or and other criteria. Yeah.
Within the 140?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Councillor Holderness. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bentley first, and then Councillor Holderness.
Thank you, Your Worship. I fully support bringing the grants back in. I opposed ever reducing them. I think it's not the time to do it, especially cold turkey for these groups. But yeah, fully support a reformed policy just to tidy it up and making sure this funding is being spent the best way possible. So glad to see it back.
Councillor Holderness.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'm in support of this too. I think we have, as council, not just financial fiscal responsibility, but we also have a social responsibility as well. And I think that's been very much seen through the LTP submissions, and I agree with ensuring that some of our really key community associations continue to get the funding that they need ongoing for the work that they do in the community.
Councillor Carson.
And just for the record, the Director of Finance, Risk and Digital Solutions has said that reinstating this is 0.01%, and that council officers will be absorbing it.
Councillor Newell.
Your Worship, I am really torn on this one because I think it sounds simple to amend the current grants policy, but I think we are going to have a very difficult job deciding who we think are the essential services. So I would be a lone voice in saying no to this.
Councillor Griffiths?
I would like to move A, B and C, listening to the comments that are made around the room around that, review of the community grant policy and hopefully that.
I'll second it.
We have a mover, A, B and C, and we have councillor Carson seconding. I'll put that to the vote. Any further discussion? No. Those in favour say aye.
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 Thank you, councillor Bentley. There's a delay as you come in. Thank you. We now move to point 10, which is the funding decisions on economic development, and we there went through, agree to reduce activity funding economic development, discontinue the economic development stimulus grant, and discontinue the residential development stimulus grant. On the consultation was clear. We had over 500 submissions on that particular area. Just some clarification, if we were to continue the economic development stimulus grant, it would be debt funded, wouldn't it? That would be, yeah.
Yes.
Any further comments or questions on the submission that we had? Deputy Mayor Swales?
Your Worship, having read, you know, a lot of the submissions and looking at the analysis that the staff did, 72% said that they wanted this funding to be reduced or put aside, and same, and even higher for the economic development stimulus grant to be discontinued with 77%. So I think, you know, there's a strong mandate from the community saying that it's actually had its time. It's time to, you know, it's enabled an awful lot of businesses to come to our city. It's certainly added to our GDP. You know, we're one of the few places when the Wellington Regional Leaders Forum look at investment and economic growth in the Y. Yes, they look here in the Wairarapa and also north of Kapiti. So I think that we don't need to actually support this. I think it's had its day, and I will be supporting that it goes out as we consulted on this.
Sure. The Deputy Mayor and I disagree on that. I am a supporter of part 10B. I think one of the reasons that the city moved forward was being able to use that economic development stimulus grant with discretion, and it certainly contributed usually to the increase in employment and GDP in this region and Upper Hutt itself. So I'm of the belief that we should continue that, but we will put those to the vote. Is there any further comments? We'll do the three separately then.
I would support taking it separately.
So we'll take we have a mover. Do we have a mover and a second for the three, A, B, C, and then we can do. Moved by Councillor Holden, seconded by Deputy Mayor Swales. On point A, are you happy there, Councillor Bentley? Yep. On point A, part A there, all those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. It's been carried. We now move to item 10B, where we discontinue the, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. No. And part C. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. It's been carried. Okay, we move on. Thank you. We need to do the item 11, which is a sustainability funding reduction. Again, we had a large number of submissions there. And again, we had some quite diverse views as we went through that the response. And again, the highlighting of that was reducing the funding will be reducing the level of services and activity compared to what we've been doing recently. Open for any further discussion.
Your Worship, in the last LTP, we brought the sustainability stimulus grant in for a 3-year trial period, and I think this is expired. I've sat on that committee and for the 3 years, and I see that it's done some really good things, and I've seen that it's enabled some organisations that probably, you know, yeah, I just think that that there are other grants that businesses can access through the sustainability stimulus, through sustainability businesses and other agencies. I don't think that we should be supporting it anymore. It was a trial for 3 years. And I also support the proposed reductions where we will be looking at delivering. Through our performance measure KPIs, we'll still be looking at our CO2 emissions because that's something that's mandated through our audit. I also believe that we still have a sustainability strategy, which has now been embedded and threaded through a lot of the work that we do through our roading and other places like that. So I don't see this as actually being, you know, the baby being thrown out with the bathwater. I see this as actually being planned in a reduced way that in these economic times is something that's quite prudent for us as councillors to do. So I will be supporting this.
Just before we go to Councillor Bentley, yeah, I mean, the prudent decision is to reduce the funding, but sadly, looking at the applications on the third year, there were some good ones. And it did take some while to get traction, but there certainly were some good ones, but that's the prudent thing to do. Now, Councillor Bentley, then Councillor Holdens.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree, we probably need to reduce this funding. However, when we do review the community grants, some of these groups kind of cross over. Obviously, the businesses won't be able to apply, but some of the community groups who do like pest control and those kind of activities, it'd be good if that could be kind of welcomed in the new grants policy, and then they can contest for that funding fairly as well.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Holdens.
Thank you. Yes, I was just going to say what Councillor Bentley has just said, specifically things like pest-free Upper Heart. The thing in discontinuing the grant scheme, and as you said, Your Worship, this last time round has had some fantastic applications for that, with things like pest control, especially around areas that the minute we start going backwards in that, it's very quick between when that happens, when we stop being able to fund that, and when pests start to take over. And given, as we've heard, you know, Kiwis in the area and everything else, I understand the financial need to stop in terms of the grants, but I just hope that there's another avenue to be able to support, especially things like pest-free.
Thank you. Councillor Griffiths.
Just for a point of clarification for you, Deputy Mayor Swales suggested that there was other avenues for some of these groups to go and apply to. Is there an opportunity or an appetite for us to go back to some of these groups and that have made submissions and just comment in that vein, saying that they can go to X, or if we've got the ability to do that? I don't know what the groups are that you're talking about, that sustainability people can go and apply to, and assume that the government agency rather than local agencies.
Your Worship, there is a mixture, Councillor Griffiths, there is a mixture. Hospitality do one for those in the hospitality industry, and I'll actually help supported businesses to apply for that. There are other government agencies that will support you too if you put your business plan together. Absolutely.
So we could.
We don't do it individually. We can certainly go out and then use, you know, when we put it out.
Yeah.
You let people know. Absolutely. Thank you. So if there's no further discussion, what we have before us is that agree to reduce the activity sustainability initiatives and projects and discontinue the sustainability stimulus growth. Councillor Bentley, do you want to? Hello. Thank you. Do we have a mover?
No one's fracking.
I will.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Swales, seconded by Councillor Hammond. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. It's been carried. We then go to the part 12, which is the water services investment, where we the preferred option that we consulted on to increase our water services investment. Again, not as many submitted, but certainly it was the most contentious one, obviously, was talking about water metering. But then again, this was about increasing our investment and including parts of the in Pinehaven stream. Anything you want to add?
Through you, your worship. No, I think I've hopefully noted all of the key points through those paragraphs 150 through 156. But happy to respond.
I'd like to go to para 155, where you did give us here. This has been one of my pet problems. So Greater Wellington Regional Council have said they've come to the party with 50% of the funding, but at 50% of what part of funding? Because we've got price escalations and things like that. So 50% of what have they agreed to, and what are we looking for? Because this is only stage 3. This isn't completing the whole thing, which is one of my bugbears.
Through you, your worship. To be fair, it was a bit of a surprise, but Greater Wellington actually have loaded up the entire estimated amount, including risk, which at this point the cumulative cost is looking at $61 million, so 50% of that.
Wow. Sorry.
Another reason for the big rate increase.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Thank you for that. I'm happy to move the recommendation of the water service investment. We have a second by Deputy Mayor Swales. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary no. It's been carried. We then go to part 13, which was our draft policy decision. Just proceed with the draft revenue and financing policy, which included the rating differentials, which we had gone out to consult with, noting that the original consultation on the forestry differential category, which was to be 500, has been reduced now to business at 250.
290.
290.
Sorry, 290, beg your pardon. The others are what we consulted on and the changes in category. Again, a large number of submissions, but certainly the forestry one was a fairly hot topic. Any discussion? Further discussion?
What can we have the recommendation?
Where they are there?
No.
Yeah, A through I, which is the new forestry differential, the vacant land one, the differential, the corrections differential, utility and 3 waters, the differential be lifted, the rural category, the business category, the residential high value, and the new land transport rate.
Just
Yep.
doesn't the draft, the proposed revenue funding policy talk about funding depreciation, balanced budget and that sort of thing, and that doesn't seem to be in the recommendations. So the recommendations only talk about the rate differentials, but if you go to para 164 on page 193, it says officers recommend that other changes be agreed to apply to the final revenue funding policy. And I presume that includes the balanced budget change in the policy and the funding of depreciation from rates as proposed in the policy. So they seem to be missing as a last recommendation.
Just get some clarification. We're comfortable though with the changes in the rating. Councillor Opera.
Through Chair, I just wanted to clarify that the rural category remains at the 0.75, and is that because we don't have a proper definition around rural? I'm just trying to get clarification around E, whether that's what it means.
Through you, your worship. The recommendation is that the rural category stay as it's been, so it's historic.
We're going to review it.
And as discussed last week, as part of the considerations, we will be doing some work in 25, 26 to review the definitions of our differential categories.
Do you have a question? Councillor Carson?
164.
What we're seeking today through your worship is an understanding, is an agreement to the differentials. The rates, the revenue and financing policy needs to come back later on.
Okay.
So we are seeking component parts today on that.
What do we mean by later on?
For adoption. So we'll bring it back. We're not asking for the revenue and financing policy to be finalised today.
Okay.
We're asking for bits of it, bring it back.
Okay.
Later in the month.
That will come back and be
Yeah.
as part of the final document.
Yes. Yeah, we need the inputs.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Griffiths?
Thank you, Tony. I just wanted to commend the staff on the amount of effort that's gone into this piece of the work. They reacted quite well and quickly. A whole lot of information from the submissions. I think this is a good result from this. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bentley, did you have your hand up? Sorry. Okay, so we have the moved A to I, correct? Moved by Councillor Wheeler. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Holderness. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. It's been carried. Now 10 o'clock, what I think we'll do is we'll adjourn for 15 minutes to have morning tea. Okay?
It's water.
We will now resume. And I would just, and more will be said at a full council meeting, I just would acknowledge, like the meeting to acknowledge the passing of our former Mayor Rex Kirton, who passed away on Monday night, Tuesday morning. Rex was elected to council here in 1977. He'd been a councillor in 1974 and became the mayor in 77 and was the mayor through to 2001. I know that Councillor Newell worked with Rex. Him and his family had a large contribution to the city, and certainly when Rex was mayor, Upper Hutt was going through quite a change and growth through that phase, and Rex led us through that. So we'll just acknowledge. No, we'll do that at the formal council meeting, but just we will acknowledge the passing of Rex and to his family. Our thoughts and prayers are with them as they go through this difficult time. His funerals will be on Tuesday at 2:00. I'm not quite sure where, but it will be there Tuesday at 2. So we'll be rearranging some things. So thanks for that. But we do acknowledge Rex. It's photograph up there. The last one to be on the wall over there. Okay, 14. We move to draft policies decision where we discuss the draft development contributions policy. And we agree as a council to proceed with the draft development contributions policy as we consulted with. And again, we got very positive feedback through that process on basically generating some extra income for infrastructure projects, which we need, and we can see where we've gone through, where a big spend's needed in the city. So do we have any further discussion on the development contribution? We certainly did have some who were not as enthusiastic, but in general, the tone was that we should proceed with the development contributions policy. Councillor Griffiths.
Through your worship. Just a question around most or all of our policies have a renewal time frame stamped on them. Has this got a renewal time frame? And if not, what is the mechanism for renewals for updates and changes, please?
I'll get to see you guys.
Yeah, through your worship. The development contributions policy can be renewed at any point in time. It's commonly done by councils when they reset their LTP or in conjunction with an annual plan. But the short answer is that it can be reviewed at any point.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Deputy Mayor Swales.
I just want to say that I think there's support in this and the fact that, and it's supported by our financial policy, in the sense that it needs to be paid for by the generation that's putting it in. It shouldn't be put over or deferred in any way, shape or form. And the community were really quite strong in the sense that they felt that the burden wasn't shared evenly when it came to actually, you know, when the new rates were being struck. So I would certainly support that we actually do the draft development contribution policy. Happy that it gets reviewed at annual plans or LTPs or even in a 5-year cycle, which this policy is key to. So yeah, I'll be supporting this.
Any further comments? Then do we have a mover and seconder for what we have on the board? C with the draft development contributions policy. Moved by Councillor Newell, seconded by Councillor Ultra. Further discussion? So put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary no. It's been carried. We go down to part 15, where we're looking at the significance and engagement policy, and under attachment 4, we consulted that council adopts a significant engagement policy, which we consulted on, and there was some close to 400 submissions. Is there any further discussion? I'll give you just time to bring it up. I'm happy to move it. It's moved by councillor Carson. Is there any further discussion? And we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. It's been carried. We now go to point 16, which is the draft policy decision on the rates, remission and postponement policy. And we went to consultation there, consulting that no change would take place. Yep. Councillor Newell.
We should just say that, in terms of, the importance of this, because so many people were concerned about how they might actually pay their rates and what kind of, where would they go, who would help them. This was at least one avenue that we could present to the public and say, please come and talk to the council officers. And I think this will be something that is vital when our staff at the front desk are able to cope with, understand, and reassure the public. One thing that did concern me in a lot of the groups that I consulted with was that their first port of call that popped into their head was, we need to go to the CAB. Now, what we need to do is pass on the message that no, the first port of call is to come to our council officers downstairs and talk to them about how the rates remission and postponement policy could in fact help them.
Thank you, Councillor Newell. Thank you. Yes, Rita.
Through your worship, just to clarify, we did add into the policy, the new policy does add in remissions for financial hardship and remissions for natural disasters, which are new categories.
Yeah.
And to your point, at an operational level, the rates team would very closely with the ratepayers above a hut to try and do what I would call early resolution of issues before they get too far into any legislative.
Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Swales.
Can I just confirm and support the rates department and that there have been some new changes and reminders that are going out electronically to people, which is something that's new that they haven't done before, which quite surprised me when I got mine. So I think that we're working towards addressing some of the issues that you're talking about, Councillor Newell, but I think, maybe a little bit of training invested into those frontline staff so that when it goes to finance, they're a little bit more across what to ask the finance team when they get there.
Further comments? So we have for us, council adopts the rates remission and postponement policy appended as the attachment 5 as was consulted on. Do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Griffiths, seconded by Councillor Newell. Any further discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
No. We go to point 17, which is the draft policies decision performance management framework. Confirm the performance management framework as it was consulted on. Where are we? Page.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, submission 205.
That's the thing. That's it. It's
All right,
fine.
that's the occasion, sorry. Yep.
Where are we going?
Do we have any comments? Councillor Carson.
Thank you, Worship. Can I have confirmation that one of the performance measures was about the confidence in from business in terms of as a result of reducing the marketing, etc. Activities. Previously, I think it was 75%, although year after year, the annual plan reports in the 90s, there's confidence in the council from businesses. Yet, I think in the proposal that went out, it was going to be reduced 50%. And I understood at a workshop, we discussed this and said it should remain as in the previous year, which was whatever the figure was, 75% or 80%. So I'd like confirmation that that particular performance measure has been changed, please.
Okay, I'll just get confirmation from the director. Yep. Won't be a minute.
Through you, Your Worship, in the supporting information for the activities as was consulted on, it did have the 50% target. So that may have been missed if you have in mind that it should be back to 75, which was the original in the 21 LTP. That is able to be amended.
I thought at the workshop we had a general consensus, I may be mistaken, that it would be increased back to what it was.
75, was it? Yeah.
You wish to take that amendment?
We'll add that. Councillor Deputy Mayor Swart.
I just want to actually support what my colleague had said, because when you look at the supporting documentation that was up on the site and the workshop that we had, my concern is that we are a service industry and that we need to be, whilst there might be some downsizing in some of the offerings that we have under the community service that goes out to the community, I still think that we should aspire to be the best that we can. By dropping those levels of service actually doesn't do that. And that's contrary to actually the business that we're in, which is the service industry to our community. So I think that we should still hold the bench high, and that way it's a marker for us to know whether we need to do something there or not. So to actually drop those performance measures, I find really, really disappointing. I will not be supporting that. I certainly will go back to what we had in our last LTP, and even the merchant report that comes back to us, to our financial and policy committee. For consistency, so that we know what we're reading and looking at, we need to make sure that we stay consistent with what we're asking the community rather than looking at it. So I will not be supporting as stated.
So this recommendation that we're confirming will come back to us to be adopted, okay. So we can get some of those figures changed. Yeah.
I'll just clarify, in the economic development activity, there are two performance measures. The first one is community satisfaction in relation to economic development. So that has currently got a target in the draft document at 50%. So that one goes back up to the 21 level of 75. The second measure is the satisfaction with the level of council support provided to retailers. That is stated at 70% already in the draft documents.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's the one that got dropped to 50%.
Yeah. So that'll come back and change.
I just want to make sure that all the other reporting lines, as per what we go out, haven't changed. And the measurement that we've got people to come back, it's not just the economic ones, but when we go out and survey, and when you look at how many questions that are asked, how many questions that have been dropped by the literature that was put out for the consultation, because it talked about there are mandatory targets that we've got. We understand that that's absolutely there. We've got to do that. But it's the other targets I want to make sure that the monitoring and reporting hasn't dropped from what the expectations of what the measurement was in the last LTP or the last report that we've got.
Through you, Your Worship, in the report, paragraph 190, it sets out the summary of the changes to the performance measures as we consulted. I'm happy to come back and confirm the detail of those. Again, this will come back for adoption at the end of June, but we can confirm the details now.
Okay, I'm happy with that, Your Worship. Thank you.
So knowing this will come back.
Yeah.
To be adopted. So we confirm the performance management framework as consulted. And we'll review the other, so you can put on there, it's not just that, but review the, All right.
Yeah.
Happy to move? Councillor Hammond, do we have a seconder? Happy to be, I'll second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Carried. Go to point 18, which is the draft schedule of fees and charges, 2024-2025. And again,
197.
197. 400 plus submitters. Again, a range of feedback on the obviously increase in fees and charges. Yep.
Sorry, I've been waiting for this one to come up. Your Worship, there were some comments made around Acknowledgment and the fees that we actually charge for interments and burial fees. And seeing as we're moving into a shared partnership with Hutt City Council, the suggestion was that we should be more in line with their fees and charges when it comes to interment, burials and things like that. So I would just like to say that I would put on the table that that's something that we consider with regard to our fees and charges, whether you bring it in for 2024, 2025 or 25, 26. But this is a relationship going forward. It has been brought up at Hutt Valley Services, and it was also noted in a couple of our public submissions. Just in case it slipped or it has gone through the SIP, I just sort of put it on the table that I would support that we actually align ourselves so that we're more in line with their fees and charges when it comes to charitable.
Councillor Brooks, then Councillor Newell.
Through Your Worship, I support Councillor Swales on the comments that she's making. My understanding is that there will be review of in line with the new offerings or a paper coming back on potential new offering cemetery once the works, once the full plan comes back. At the moment, there's just a conceptual plan, to my understanding. Yeah, I don't know, the director's not here, that would normally know that you're, what's that? Here you are.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. I mean, as you noted, Councillor, we are working collaboratively with our counterparts at Hutt City, including a meeting we had as recently as last Friday with regard to the joint committee feedback that is coming back with the agreement. So I'm happy certainly to look into that, and that will be done as part of that review that's taking place. We just need to think through the whole ramification of full alignment with Hutt City around some of these aspects. So absolutely happy to consider it and then come back to you on that.
Councillor Newell, then
Your Worship, I'm fully supportive of Councillor Swales' concept there, but we should be looking at the fees and charges as they relate to us, not full alignment with them, because their costs are quite different to ours. And I think we just need to be careful that we're not just picking up, and I'm sure this isn't what you meant, that we're not just picking up what they charge and saying, oh, let's do the same thing. We need a proper analysis of the actual costs for our ratepayers, which would be different to theirs.
The reason why I'm asking this, there is a memorandum of understanding, and I understand there is some work going through, and I understand that it's well past its due by date for this to happen, and we've all acknowledged that on both sides. But the other thing that I find that when the plans do come back, because they've expired, a lot of their burials and interments, there's only a few left yet, that when the plans come back, they will be actually using our facility. The other thing that I would like to ask then, if we are going to have a look at this, maybe not for 24, 25, but when the plans come back, that the terminology is saying, because when I do the comparisons, we talk in a slightly different language to what they do. So consistency would be another thing that I would like to ask the officers to look at when they bring that paper back to Hutt Valley Services. But I hope that that paper doesn't only just go to that committee, because we're not all members of that committee.
So could you enlighten me, what language do they talk down there?
So when I, so when they, well, you know, like we talk about second internments and things like that, they use a different term than that, okay? And then there are some others, and I just think for, hate to say it, transparency and consistency, we need to be speaking off the same page. So there are some minor tweaks here that I would suggest that we do. Yeah.
Just through you, Your Worship. I mean, absolutely, I support where you're coming from with this, and increasingly, Hutt City and Upper Hutt City are working more collaboratively. We're doing that in the water space, doing it in the park space as well. So, I support the intent of where you're coming from, but I guess I would want to keep my powder dry in terms of how we negotiate through some of these contractual arrangements as well. Noting that we will be bringing it back to that Joint Services Committee.
Yeah, I'm just happy with that.
Councillor Bentley, did you? No, sorry. Okay. So we then confirm the draft schedule of fees and charges for 2024, 2025. Happy to move. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Griffiths, all those in.
And can I ask officers to consider, can we
Yep,
put that in there as well?
yep.
Yeah.
Just an amendment, the annual plan to.
25%.
Thanks, yep.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no, it's been carried. Okay, now let me work through. What I tend to do is there were some also requests for new funding, and I have that open if anyone's got any comments to make on that or on a particular submission. We can take them now, and then what I'll do is I'll take them in batches. We'll go through. There were 697 submissions, and we'll just, if anyone's got any comments to make, I'll put them through in batches. I'd say we'll go through 20. So if anyone wants to pull out a submission that they specifically want to talk to, we'll do it that way. Bearing in mind that any 100,000 will increase tax by 0.1%, $1 million impact will have a 1.55% increase in rates. But I think some of those, for many of the new funding requests, those submissions we've covered through as we went through, and the specific ones will come back through the community. Some of them come back through the community grants now that we've reintroduced community grant. Councillor Carson.
I don't like average yearly rate increases of 8.94 because the government has told us that that doesn't tell us the full story. So I would like that recommendation there explicitly mention the rate increase for each of the first 3 years, which is 19.93, 19.
Well, hang on, we'll come back to that. We're just going to go through the individual submissions.
Well, why is that happening?
Well, I'm not sure, but concentrate on this, not the TV.
Right. Okay. Well, I haven't got that in front of me, so can we hit them up?
Well, they'll come up when we go to vote. But at the moment, I'm just saying, is there any other working through the submissions that people have identified that they want to bring up? So if we go from submissions 1 through to 20. See? And if there anything that individually people want to bring through, you go onto the council website, all the submissions there are in order.
Just waiting for somebody to get here.
Where? If anyone has anything on any of those submissions as we work through, we'll discuss them here. Submissions 21 to 40. Yes, councillor Ultra.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a suggestion around, because the cap policy idea has come up a few times now, and what I'm wondering is if we can look at covenants on land in areas where, so if it's like a greenfield development in an area where there are known species such as native bats or kiwis, then perhaps there should be a cap policy covenant on that particular land. So it's a matter of, you know, and the only other thing I could think of was in terms of numbers per household, that could be a possibility as well.
Well, it's probably
something just to think about.
It's probably something that we can think about through committee stage and get something come back. That's what council want to do at some stage. I look with council.
Well, I know it's not popular, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, that's
it's something that, I mean, in terms of, you know, a whole cap policy which involves, you know, having more on staff to manage, that would be quite difficult. But in terms of covenants on areas of sensitive land, perhaps that could be an option.
So we're now submission 61 through to 80.
Yes. Sorry, Your Worship, I'm looking at number 34.
No, yep.
About leaving local government New Zealand. Have we, I can't recall if we've actually decided a yay or nay to that one, or is that a...
Effectively, it's, as it stands, we'll be going, won't we? Because that's what we consulted on.
We consulted on that we were going, leaving.
Yeah.
Excuse me, where did you get submission number 34? It's not what I've got on my.
Well,
211.
Yeah, page 211. The submission, the sort of highlight of the submission is in an order. And what the mayor's taking us through in batches.
Yeah.
So it's different on Stella.
No, I'm looking at this on Stella.
I'm looking at 34 and it says you need to find more savings.
Well, what I'm looking at says leave LGN as a radical lending organisation. That will save $1 or $2.
Yeah,
so I just put it in
and we'll be going.
It's not in the budget.
No, correct. Yeah,
I'm on the wrong page. I'm on. Should be.
Yeah, and their fees have gone up. Correct, isn't it?
Could we just take, so they've gone up to what, sorry?
Your Worship, they've gone up by 15% from around about 44, so they'd be now a bit over 50 for us.
Yeah.
Okay, submissions 81 to 100.
And just.
Yep, nice, I'll give you time. Yeah, you're the most competent on these machines.
So when we're looking at these, Your Worship, we're only kind of looking at them. We're not looking at the response that we're going to give these people out. We're just looking at, is there anything we're going to pull through?
Anything you want to pull, and if there's anything you want to, that you think should be added or subtracted from the response, it's looking at each of those individuals. Yep. Councillor Carson?
Last LTP, we actually considered the submissions and the proposed responses.
Yeah, no, that's what we're doing now. I'm asking.
Well, yeah, but the responses were already there, provided by council officers as a possible response. This hasn't happened this year.
This time, what we're saying is if there's something you specifically want to add to it,
but, I would like to have seen
Okay,
the the council officers' proposed response to these, because when are we going to see our responses to these submissions, to these questions? And when will we receive them? Before they go out back to the submitters, because that was the process in last 21 LTP, and it seemed to be missing from this one.
Yeah, but your worship, there's no way we would know what the answer is until we've gone and addressed any particular things in here
Worship,
that we think should be
doesn't
added.
understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that last LTP, when we considered these comments, etc., there was already on the right-hand side, council's officers proposed comments back to the submitter, and we considered those as a bundle.
Yeah.
This time around, we're not doing it. So my question is that when do we see the proposed comments that go back to the submitter, and do we have time to consider them and sign off of them? Because that process is not happening.
Your worship, the responses would depend on council's decisions from today. So we are seeking the direction and decisions today, and then those responses will come back as part of the adoption.
And on the 20th or whatever.
30th of June.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
That's
That's what you said.
Yeah. So I
was saying.
Yeah.
number 92.
Number 92.
Just a comment there that there did seem to be from a number of respondents an issue about leadership costs, and I just want us to flag that that's something that we need to explain to the public, that it's not our choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, submissions 101 to 120. Oh, councillor Ultra. Yep.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I actually can't find where I saw it, but there was a comment about the gardens around our urban areas where when the plants are pulled out, what happens to them, whether they can be, gifted to the community or community groups, or whether they had it anyway. But just a question around that, and to just avoid waste basically is the key.
I'm not sure what happens when they probably get thrown away. They're probably dead, are they?
Through your worship, those particular plants are annuals, and they're called annuals because they die off after a year. So when they're removed, they are effectively at end of life.
Okay, submissions.
No, I'm not going to the next one.
121 to 140.
Councillor Ultra, yours is on 105, your question.
Oh, it was
And
105.
Campbell, the next one. I just want to talk about 101, the rates increase. And it's about a growing city and failing infrastructure, but it talks about schools and other things. Surely under here, we should look at maybe going to the government, which is what Ben Brown has done, to ask that we actually get more money coming into our coffers for like schools and government departments that don't actually pay rates. Whilst we've asked, did we put it as a remit to LGNZ, your worship, to actually ask government to do that? But under rates, I think we should be looking at everything.
Yeah. Can I repose, your worship? If we are no longer going to be members of LGNZ, I don't know how we could be asking them to.
No, it's a remit that already did. That's probably why we're withdrawing. They don't do anything with them, your councillor.
Oh, sorry, I thought you just said that we should.
Yeah, it was there a remit put up before.
It was last year.
Yeah, and they do nothing about that. Hence, I support us withdrawing.
I misheard. I thought you said that we should be asking LGNZ to.
No.
Okay.
Submissions 141 to 160.
Yeah, the 141.
Yes.
Again, I think from a submission we had, I think from Mary Beth this morning, about what rural road projects. And the word that seemed to be missing there was safety. So I think we need some more education there on the fact that these are not just about rural roads, it's about safety. I think that needs to be highlighted.
Make note of that. (161) to 180. Many of these were covered as we went through each of these. But if there's anything in particular.
Yeah, Your Worship, yet again, I think there's a communication issue here.
Yep.
We need to be highlighting and correcting some of this miscommunication about what we have funded, what someone else has funded. Yeah.
That's comes through in a few of them, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh. (181) to 200.
Yeah, again, just communication issues coming through some of these ones.
Your Worship.
Yes, Hammond.
Yeah. Thank you, Your Worship. Floorboard just keeps on wearing its head. How much does it actually cost? And could that be just, I would have thought that would have been so popular, that would be so easy to be picked up by the schools, with just a few pieces. Can you?
I'll get director, he can fill us in.
Through you, Worship, to extract the exact cost is really difficult. What we propose to do is to continue to run floorball through the rest of this year and look at other options. There is an Upper Hutt floorball club, and you've mentioned also schools, so that we can potentially get another organisation to run that. And if they have volunteers, etc., like that, they will probably make a little bit of money for themselves out of running that.
Magic.
You go for it.
But do we charge them for the use of the hall? Is there that way we could help them? Are they getting?
It's through you, Your Worship, I would need to check whether we pay for the hall because it is a council-run project, or whether the hall is free of charge.
Right.
But I can certainly check that information. We charge the schools per team for entry into the competition, which we supply the referees for the draw, the results, etc.
You seem very interested in that floor, Councillor Cameron. Where are you going to put a team in? Councillor Griffiths.
Mine was just clarification from the Community Services. So the option's going to get put to them as soon as possible for them to figure out how to pick it up and continue running it next year. And those fees and all the information can be passed to them to run.
Through Your Worship, yes, as we will continue on through to this year. So there's one more term. We finish this coming term on the 1st of July. We will continue to run it through while we work through with those options for the commencement of the school year in 2025.
Thank you.
Submission 201 to 220. Councillor Hammond.
Well, we're at the stage where we're going to need to give the public the rundown of what's happening at H2O, how it's got to this stage, where the money's been spent and where it's going. My very common question is how it's getting on, where is it going to be open? And although I think I've asked you, Mike, where do we go to get those figures, and you tell me, the public don't keep on asking that question. Is there a chance that we could go right back to when we first decided to do something with the pool, the cost, the overruns, what's actually happened, and so that the public actually knows, and they're not coming back with questions, generic questions like this all the time.
Through your wishes, you can certainly get all that, and it has been, I think from memory, was first in the 2018 long-term plan, then was again in the 221 long-term plan, and I can confirm that it is currently on budget and is expected to open in March, late February, early March 2025.
Can we do something flash to tell everybody this?
We can make a point.
There's nothing on the website.
Is it, to see, Jeff said that all that information is on the website.
Yeah, but no one looks at it. Can we do something more than that?
I mean, the leader.
We can actually, one of the things when the articles that we write, it goes in the letter, we can make one.
Richard, I think in that explanation, I agree with Councillor Hammond, in that explanation, we should also refer to the paper that went up before the elections, which said that, where council officers said that the increased costs have gone into the mid-60s, 60 millions in the mid-60s, and we moved a motion to keep the budget down to 50 and asked for a value engineering to do so. And in doing so, we moved that psychotherapy report and some other stuff out in the long-term plan. So I think that needs to explain that the council did move to limit the costs in terms of, you know, the years of the development. So that hasn't been explained very well to the community either. So we did do it, and we need to explain what that May profit couldn't get it to 50, got it to 52, and then the roof repairs happened. So I think all that needs to be explained, particularly that when we first started off in 2018, they were the very estimates of the very start of a project, and as you move through the project life cycle, the costs get more defined.
Yep.
Councillor Holdens.
Mine's not on this though, so Councillor, yours is on this.
Yeah, I think what the bigger picture in all of this is that I think that we are having difficulty communicating with the public in a manner in which the sectors need to receive information. So we know that our older sector in general are not looking at the website. And so the different sectors need different levels of communication. And I think one thing that we need to be cognizant of when the chief executive is getting down to the level of what savings can be made in, you know, the 3.8, 4 point whatever it was million that need to be made, that one area that we really need to make sure that we're not cutting back on is communication. Because just coming up with Councillor Carson's story there, it's not just a case of dumping that on the website. It needs a much bigger strategy around how we communicate. And the website and Facebook is just not enough.
Yep, great.
Now, Councillor Holdens.
Thank you. But I will talk to that. I do think that we have trouble telling the story. And I think that's been quite clear throughout the LTP process, but there's also a whole lot of other things that are happening that we as council are doing, which is great. But obviously the community don't know about it as such. So really having a good investigation of some of those channels around which we can start to push information rather than expecting them to go and pull it, because otherwise they're not visiting our websites, but you know, they come on the landing page and look for what they're looking for, and then that's it, they go. Mine was actually, I was going to go back to Councillor Altra's point about the, there's actually quite a few comments about, I think it's around the perception of what we're spending money on, and to the roundabouts and the plantings, and I understand that that we're planting annuals. Can we be planting perennials? Can we do something different with the roundabouts? Can we do something in a way that doesn't look like wastage? Is there something in there that's kind of hungry. What? No. No, but in a way. Don't just concrete over it.
Through your worship, our contract is currently around about 100K per year for the planting of roundabouts and flower beds. We could move to planting plants, shrubs, other things. We might conceivably save half of that funding, because a large part of that funding, because these are all close to the road, is involved in basically traffic management. So even if you plant something that's a bit permanent, then you're still going to have to maintain it. So you can't avoid some of that cost. So yes, there are savings to be made. It's on balance. Just have to work out whether it's worth a change, or whether from an aesthetic point of view, the public will react to something less than what they've had.
But again, that's something I think that we can push out. We can say, look, there are a lot of people who noted that there was waste in this space. What we've done is a change here, especially if it's not a massive material change, but it does result in some savings. I think all of those smaller stories pushed out on a regular basis help to let the community know that we are actually listening to them in some of these spaces.
Sad to that, through your worship. So, I mean, absolutely, of course, and the engagement activities I was involved with as part of the LTP, I did hear that, but also I heard people coming up and talking to me directly about the pride that they have and the flower beds within the city as well. So I'm just recognising there are different points on this, and it is, as the chief executive said, a relatively marginal cost, but completely open to option.
Yes, I'm sure there are nice looking perennials on.
Councillor Griffiths, then Councillor Carson.
Through your worship, sitting on council for the last times, that conversation comes up just about every single time. Every time we look at trying to save money, and one of the directors in the past, maybe even CE, has come up with the rationale that in our survey that we do, the only point that gets hit every single time is the pride and the value that people have in those gardens that are around our city. It's like hits 190-something% all of the time. There's been no indication from that survey saying get rid of them, save the money, whatever. I understand completely where you're coming from, that there is savings to be made, but I don't know whether or not this is one of those items that's negotiable to the public.
Councillor Carson.
Well, I think that the council should employ a Aunt Daisy type person who was a great communicator and got her message across.
Thank you. Exactly. Well, we might see if he wants a job. Submission 221 to 240. $241 to $260.
I just want to point out there's an interesting one on 255, Stephen Evans, reduce the amount of councillors, knowing that we're looking at the review of representation. Interesting.
So he'll have his opportunity to speak on that.
So I think that would be a good one to respond to, to that. I have another one on 258. And this is from Wendy Blanche, and it's looking at maintaining the basic infrastructure for a very, very long time. My concern is that she's not the only one, but a lot of people talk about pet projects and vanity projects. I think we need to kind of explain to them that actually a lot of projects are business as usual, and that, to maintain the basic infrastructure, which is in a very first sentence, that's actually what we're doing. We're not doing vanity projects or pet projects, because in 265, to people's pet projects is once again referred to. So I think we need to just articulate that business as usual is these things, and that's what we're trying to do. in the LTP.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out, because the 283 as well as a number of others have pointed out the Gibbons to Main Street intersection and that upgrade, and there isn't actually any sort of plans on paper that we can share with the community at this stage. There's councillors haven't even, seen what kind of plans are being looked at. So it would be good to update the community on exactly what is happening there, or what the priority is. So it's to straighten the road, but apart from that, it would be good just to have some.
There's a look at now, stage one's occurred, this building's gone. But there's been no, I think initially there was some sort of drawing, wasn't there, way back?
We have it.
But
We have had, but quite some time ago, and they're certainly not the current plan, or there is no current plan as far as the community know.
Through you, Worship, you are correct. When the land was acquired for future development, there were a series of options that were promoted. From memory, I think there were about 9 or 10. But because the project has not attracted Waka Kotahi funding at this point in time, the detailed planning, which is, I think, what you're alluding to, that has not been undertaken such time as it gets through the business case process, which is why it's been scheduled for the outer years of the 3-year plan and maybe even further. When it was originally promoted, at that time, the government policy statement had one of its key focus areas was on congestion and movement of traffic. And that was at that time, the decision was made to advance those 2 projects. But subsequent government policy statements have taken away that as a priority activity. Interesting, that is likely to come back in the current government policy statement, but for a period of years, it was not included. But as I say, it could be making a re-emergence. In terms of that particular area, it may be that there are other alternatives to a roundabout style development, but we just have to get through the business case process, which assesses all options, and will bring back something that is beyond more than those original provided. It was before I got here, so it must have been 2015, 2016.
Well, you might have been.
So it could be another plan.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, if there's excess land here, it'd be a decision for council whether it's one of those assets, whether we need to keep the land.
Permeable surfaces.
So we now move to submissions 261 to 80. (281) to 300. Councillor Griffiths.
On 300, we've got similar saying that we pay the mayor and see if we move past that one. We move to there's talking on about moving Wellington water, stop paying contractors to mow lawns, bring it all in house. Be able to make money, save money by bringing the services inside. Is there any conversation, comment coming back around that?
About paying the mayor and the CE less.
No, about the other, bringing any services back in house.
Through you, Worship. Yes, look, this comes up quite often. It's the debate we're having around water as well. And the point that's made in there is quite valid. If you can outsource it and somebody can do it and still make a profit out of it, then why can't we do it in-house delete the profit item and do it cheap. The decision, I wasn't here, and I don't know if many people in this room were, when the decisions were made to outsource a lot of the service delivery. But they were made, and presumably for good, valid reasons at that time. And I guess from our point of view, the cost of re-entering those services, the provision of those services could be quite high. For example, our depot facility where you house the services is in dire need of investment. You would then need to go through the process of obtaining the necessary equipment, and then you've got to maintain, or you've got to develop a pool of skilled people to operate that equipment. The short answer is yes, it could be done. It's probably something that we need to consider as an option as part of Section 17A reviews, which, although they're overdue, that's something that will be 6 months or so, and that looks at options for the delivery of all core services. So yeah, it will be featuring as part of that process. Just bearing in mind that the cost of getting back into service delivery can be quite high.
Thank you.
Councillor Wheeler.
Just to follow up on what CE said, I agree, well, I understand exactly what CE's saying, but the thing is though, I think our ratepayers are getting ripped off. And so we need to find a way how everything's, that we can see everything's transparent. We know exactly where our money goes in those three waters. It's an area that I've brought up a few times now, that 46% that we spend on expenditure, really, we don't know whether that could be a lot lower than what it is. We know 54% that we spend, we can actually micromanage that, but 46 we don't. And I just have a feeling we get ripped off and our hands are tied.
Councillor Newell.
Well, I'm just sort of wondering how to respond to Councillor Wheeler there, but in the meantime, Sharon Grieber now, I wonder if when we come to do responses, whether there's something specific needs to be said to her.
What number? Sorry.
Number 284.
Okay.
Just sort of explaining a bit about how the system works and.
Can I before the order, I just think that we need to be really careful. We're not in a good financial space at the moment. The cost to actually go into some of these things to bring them in-house is not, we're not in the space that we can actually entertain that. We need to be aware of it. And whilst the community are suggesting that we need to bring these things in, there is a CapEx cost, a maintenance cost, all of those things that are ongoing. And if it's something that we want to entertain, then we've got to direct the officers that we need a cost analysis and an economic overlay that needs to come back with a decision on work that we need them to do. But it's wonderful to have these ideas. And whilst we might think that our community are being ripped off, at the moment, we need to be looking at now and into the future. So this is not something I see for this 3 years LTP. It might be when we review in 3 years' time and ask the officers to bring a paper back to us. But it's certainly not something we acknowledge that yes, it's something that we could possibly look at. But to bring it in now, we can't afford it.
Yeah, and Councillor Swales, Your Worship, if I can, I think we also. We're the ones who are making decisions about how things are paid for and those policy decisions. If we are unhappy with recommendations or policies that we've had in the past, we change them.
Okay.
But to just suggest that things could be done in some different way without us knowing or understanding operationally, I just think that's a bit of a reach.
Through you, Your Worship, just with regards to comments on service delivery, particularly regarding Three Waters, in the report paragraphs 152 and 153 refers to that as a future consideration as part of implementation of the government's local water done well policy. So work on that has commenced and planning at the moment. New further legislation has just been introduced last week, setting out requirements for council and in terms of next level of detail of planning that's required under that policy. So all of that, all of what's being discussed in relation to Three Waters will come back to council and will form part of that consideration and work over the next 12 months and beyond.
I think, Your Worship, is one other thing too. We are introducing the policy around identifying what government regulations and laws, what impact those have on our activities and costs and budgets.
One of our risk is we're identifying. Are we up to number 30? 300?
We have to do 301 to 320.
Can I talk to 300?
Yep.
Can we still have the money for the sculpture committee? I didn't think we did.
We've still got a sculpture, well, we haven't got a sculpture committee.
No, we don't.
There's no money in it.
Just a question I just thought I'd ask because it's been brought up in there. No, that was number 300.
There's quite a lot to mention that.
And then 328, once again, this is for planning. I thought that food safety and resource consents were user pays. Because in number 328, right down in, the below, why are ratepayers having to co-pay for building compliance, food safety and resource consents? I thought that they were legislated, those licenses, that it was fully recovered by the user.
Your Worship, just to answer the question, that's in relation to the proportionality of ratepayer funding split versus full user pays, and there is a proportional split there, so.
Maybe we need to change that. I'd like to then look at that because that should be part of your setup costs for any business, is your food safety and license. That's part of your business plan. So I think that should be full recovery. So
we're happy to take that step.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Can I just clarify that? Is that should we be looking at, is that a full cost recovery for all of those classes?
Yes, absolutely. Alcohol, the whole lot.
Just know with alcohol, that's step by statute and just separate to this process, but certainly in terms of the broader program, officers are looking at moving up our program of bylaws so that we can then in fact set our fees and charges in relation to alcohol licensing.
Right, thank you.
320 to 340. Move to 341. Sorry.
Through you, Worship.
Yeah.
Can I just check something on that last one? The revenue and financing policy, we've got environmental health, liquor, alcohol licensing, and first is 60-70% general rate, and then 30-40% user fees and charges.
Yeah.
Alcohol licensing 30-40% general rate, 60-70 fees and charges. So effectively the other way around.
Yeah. I'm suggesting yes.
Council suggesting that be changed now or future?
I think in the future, because we haven't consulted on it, but I would like David to come back so that we look at it in our fees and charges for 25, 26.
No, that's where it's going. We haven't consulted.
Yeah.
And dog control.
I didn't put that in.
Okay, 341 to 360.
Your Worship?
Yes.
Oh, 360, it's okay.
Please. Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to say I fully support Deputy Mayor Swales on that last point about the user pays for the licensing. I think it is the fairest approach, and I'll be keen to see it reviewed.
Thank you.
361 to 380. Yep, councillor.
Your worship, 369, and it's Joe Grant, it's around the half pipe. So I think we need to, there were a few people that mentioned the half pie and a community hub and places like that. So I think we need to look at, are we going to continue using that building as part of our extended operation, or will we be able to look at returning it to the community in some way, shape or form? It would be nice to have a direction from the officers or the CEO where we might land with this.
Through you, your worship, the answer to that question is that we will be moving out of that facility in the very near future. And options for how it was utilised thereon will be brought back to council.
Thank you
Very much. I was pleased to hear that.
Submissions 381 to 400. Councillor Beakley.
It's left on this
Left
previous
out.
question.
It's all right. No problem. Thanks. We've got alert staff here.
Your worship,
Absolutely.
one that keeps coming up, and again, to me, it's sort of just a public doesn't understand issue, but the hydrotherapy pool, you know, whether we should take that out. I mean, how realistic are we that that is going to happen within this period?
The pipes are already in though.
Yeah, but so what? The pipes are there, but you know, there's so many comments about the pool and about the hydrotherapy pool that I wonder if we shouldn't actually have a look and let's think about the logistics of the hydrotherapy proposal to actually just recognise what people are saying to us.
Well, that will get answered. I mean, see, clearly we're at the moment, I can't, what year is it in at the moment? Year 5?
Yeah, it's a perception issue that so many people appear to think that it's something on the cards in the next 5 minutes, even though we know it's into the future. But I would like us to have another thought, another look at whether we remove that item altogether.
It's
It's a perception.
though, for people who need that type of therapy and puts it in an affordable.
Yeah, but how many people actually said keep the hydrotherapy pool compared to how many said don't go there?
Well, Councillor, I'll get this directed first, then Councillor Carson.
Through you, Your Worship, there is commentary on that project in the report on page 186. It is one that is sort of included based on the last round of comparison in 2022-23, when the project was turned into 2 stages. But suggest it is very much on the program for council to reconsider at a future LTP in 3 years' time, which is still ahead of when it is currently programmed.
And that would be the answer they get. Yeah, Councillor Carson.
Just the response to Councillor Europe's comment is that an LTP is an LTP and you don't actually get to follow through on all the projects. When you get to that particular year or year before, you consider each particular one on the business case. The second point is that I think most of the responses about getting rid of the hydrotherapy pool, getting rid of the roundabout, all that was under the mistaken belief that in doing so, it would reduce the rates in the first 3 years. And I think that's where all the comments are coming from, not on the value of the hydrotherapy pool. It was on the mistaken belief that by reducing or eliminating or pushing out all those projects would reduce the rate increases in the first 3 years. And that's the misapprehension and misunderstanding in the community's response.
Yeah, Your Worship, I fully understand what Councillor Carson is saying there, but I'm just This is all about perception.
But
I'm
that
just,
will be part of the response process to people saying even taking it out, it's not going to make any difference to your rates.
yeah, I know that, but.
Yeah, but that's the communication, letting people know. That will be the answer they get.
Yeah, but I'm asking for us to reconsider that item on the basis of how many people have actually made comments about the pool and the hydrotherapy pool.
Well, councillor, because the response is that they wanted it taken out because they thought that would reduce the rates in the first 3 years. So that is the response.
Well, I'm just asking for us to reconsider it.
You can.
Councillor Bentley, and then was it Councillor Aldous? Did you? Yeah.
Thank you,
Bentley?
Your Worship.
Yeah.
I support Councillor Newell on this. There hasn't been a huge level of support for the hydrotherapy pool. And whilst I do agree with Councillor Carson that it has nil effect on the rates at the moment, what it does do is it pre-allocates some of our debt headroom towards that project, which means we can't do something else. So it does have an opportunity cost there. So I'd support taking it out for now, and then it can be reconsidered at a later LTP.
Councillor Aldous and then Councillor Carson.
I'm in agreement, and I do think it's an assumption that's made. I agree that it may be something that people had in mind that would reduce the cost, but that is an assumption, and we can go back out and consult at a later point. So I'm also in agreement with Councillor Newell.
Councillor Carson.
Well, we take out the hydrotherapy pool, we take out the roundabout at Wakatiki Street, we take out the roundabout at Gibbon Street, we take out the widening of the Tocha Park Bridge, we take out everything in the capital project together, the long-term plan, if you want to be consistent. Because that's also what community responded on, was we're getting rid of the roundabouts, getting rid of every other project, and we've seen already from the Director of Finance, Risk and Business Solutions, what a bell wave of capital expenditure that's going to create for future generations and other half. So let's be consistent in your logical explanations, please. If you do one, you do the lot, because they all submitted on the basis of taking out all those projects because it was going to reduce the rates in the first 3 years. Be consistent.
Your Worship.
Yes, Councillor Bentley.
Well, just into response to that, I think it's quite different. Additional hydrotherapy pool versus capex on maintaining our existing infrastructure that people use every day. Quite a big difference to say, well, if you're taking one out, you've got to take out the others. One will have the others have quite a significant impact versus something that we can easily not do for a longer period.
Okay. Councillor Alter.
Yeah, I think it's just a discrepancy in what people would consider non-essential spending. I can't. I do see the value in hydrotherapy, so it's hard to say that would be more important than a road.
Now let's move to submission 401 and 420. 401, 420. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Your Worship. 402, Heather Blissett. Mine is probably a bit bigger than just your submission. There's a lot of comments in and around all of the sports facilities that we operate. I know we haven't taken come back at some stage around the fees and charges. I think we're waiting on Greater Wellington area fees and charges around parks and the usage. Is that still on the go? I just haven't heard of them for a while. I was just wondering whether or not there is actually something back.
A petition that we signed to council.
Through Your Worship, the reference being made here is to the study that Wellington City commissioned. That study was primarily aimed at determining whether or not Wellington City was out of alignment with the rest of the region in terms of its fees and charges. It is due for imminent release, but we've not yet seen a copy of it.
Thank you. Does that mean that we are waiting on that copy to look at our fees and charges?
Through you, Worship. From what we've seen, we were all priced at the lower end of the fee scale. And so from our point of view, I think we would really be just waiting to see what it does show up, showing our fees and charges perhaps relative to typical fees and charges from across the region. But as I say, we're already at the lower end of the scale, which is somewhat surprising because we get badgered quite often that our fees and charges, particularly for the use of sports grounds, is high. But they're clearly, when you look at what they're charged in other places, no, we're not. We're certainly not the top of the scale, and in most instances, we're very near the bottom.
But the offering that we have in the sports facilities that we're offering, that would possibly need looked at.
Yes, that would be correct. I mean, I guess the other way of looking at it is current recovery from fees and charges for the use of, say, sports grounds is somewhere around $60,000-$70,000 a year. There is an argument that could be made around whether or not you actually went through the hassle of billing user groups for the use of those facilities, benefit that perhaps they contribute to community health and wellbeing. My understanding also behind the Wellington City study, it was that it was originally led by a couple of sporting codes who were trying to drive the Wellington City Council towards reduced or zero fees. And it spilled over into a much wider study.
Thank you.
Okay, submissions 421 to 440. $441 to $460. Now we go to submissions 461 to 480.
Your worship, under 461.
461, yes.
It's going back to the Ferguson Drive, Gibbon Street intersection. And with regards to what the CEO has said, is it worth giving a little bit more explanation about maybe the change of government, the change of transport policy, where they might be going with this, so that the equal funding or the funding, landscape might have changed? I just think, to explain to people, because I know it's been around for a really, really long time, but it just might pay to put a little bit more added weight around that. And it covers a whole host of them that actually talked about that particular intersection. Yeah.
You start here in the mornings. Where's it going to get fixed? Councillor Griffiths.
462. I do not like how you have worded the book.
What's that?
We've had a few submissions and a few people come and speak to us around the difficulty they had in information. I understand, because I was in the conversation from the very beginning, the reasoning behind putting out pamphlets to mailboxes and the options on collecting more information, and whether the booklet that went out being how many pages it was, but the supporting documents being in the hundreds of pages. I don't know how we would do it differently. I think it comes down to that communication topic that we were talking about earlier on, trying to get that message shared out. I know that the saving that we made was substantial, to the hundreds of thousands of dollars by not posting everybody. Was it? No, how much was it then?
We got quoted 42,000, 42K.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Spent.
that's not thousands.
We spent.
I don't know, but that's what it was going to
Okay.
cost.
Okay.
That was my point, was we made savings, the point was trying to make savings. And we did make those savings, but at the cost of some complaint coming back that we weren't as transparent or. So just making sure that we keep that in mind in the next round of papers to go out.
Well, yeah, but I will remind councillors that we made that decision.
Okay.
Council made that decision, not staff. We made that decision. Yep.
469.
469. Yep.
About another gripe when contractors clean the road with low in the buses. Well, just my observation the other day was there are contractors out down below the civic building. They use the blower to blow the leaves away. How ridiculous is that? Why don't part of the contractors pick up the leaves? Blow the leaves away? Unreal.
Councillor Begley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just following on from Councillor Griffith's point before, one thing that has come up in these submissions is that what we've kind of put out in our wording, the public just didn't really grasp it, or we didn't quite put it across in a way that was friendly or easy to digest. And something that was raised that could be a way to fix that in the future is to have like a community focus group or citizens advisory panel to kind of test this stuff with before it goes out for consultation. Because I know that's our role essentially for a point, but if you're on council for a period, you can kind of get so familiar with the material that you think, oh yeah, this makes sense. But if you're not removed from that for a while, you can get kind of in the organisation. So if we had an outside group to kind of give us feedback on consultation documents before they went out, we could actually prevent a lot of this, well, hopefully prevent or improve our consultations in the future.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Through you, Richard. Thank you, Councillor Bentley. That suggestion was one, and we'll take that on board. Alongside that, I will just note that we are still subject to meeting audit requirements, and so it's just balancing what is digestible and understandable from a panel's perspective or the community's perspective, but also still maintaining our audit compliance.
Thank you. Submission is now 501 to 520. Councillor Swale.
I just want to go, I know you said 501 and I apologise. I'm going back to Margaret Trader's 499. If we're looking at being quite serious, and a lot of councils are doing it up and down the country, is introducing parking meters. And I think that it's quite a contentious issue that we have around the table, but I think that a paper needs to come to us because we are very limited in the resources other than rates and fees and charges as to where we can collect any money. And I think it's about time that we actually looked at what it would cost to bring in paid parking, and have an economic overlay over it to come back to us. Because a few people have said we should look at bringing paid parking in.
Councillor Ultra and Councillor Williams.
Thank you. I would certainly support looking at those things, especially in new areas of car parking, particularly around railway stations where people are parking all day. But I actually wanted to go back to number 480 because there's a note there about how community events support social well-being, and I think that I mean, we can't afford to support everything, but I just wanted to point that out because that's something that we could perhaps look at in our annual plans, and if we know that there's something that a community group want to do, that perhaps there could be some support through the annual plans as well.
Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I mean, parking meters, fiscal implementation of meters comes at a high cost. Here we are trying to save money, and our community simply cannot afford it. In saying that, Lower Hutt might be able to afford it, and I'm putting down the Tony. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Your Worship, I thought that we had in fact had a some information about the cost, the investment in various parking options. And we had discarded those as being a capital expense that
Long time ago.
How long ago was that?
That was a long time.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, there's been no work done on this in recent times, and the technology has evolved quite significantly. Even if you look to, for example, Wellington City, where they put in sensors, frog sensors in parking spaces, which were then linked to lights that indicated whether a vehicle was parked. They've now transitioned to removing those individual sensors and just putting in a machine that you enter your number plate to, and you select your time and pre-purchase. The trend now seems to be towards those systems which have a lower capital cost than the more intensive individual censored spaces. So look, it is something that we as an organisation can look at and come back to you with some options and thoughts on. In terms of how quickly you would want to move on that, I guess it depends to an extent on how quickly Greater Wellington in relation to charging for parking and park and ride facilities. Because if they were to lead the charge on that, then we would probably have a little choice other than to follow on, because all that would do is displace parking from the park and ride to other car parks around the city. So the question, I suppose, and this is getting into the weeds, but if you were to allow them to bear the unpopularity of that move, then you would be able to follow on for perhaps a different reason. But you would, there's no doubt that you would have to do it if they went ahead and did it.
Well, Your Worship, I think with that answer, we do need more information, because I thought, and I've been telling people the capital costs are so high.
No.
So I would appreciate something.
I think it's
Factual.
We've got some breathing space just to see what we'll Greater Wellington go first.
Well, what I'm looking for, Your Worship, is some factual information about the issues and the capital costs and why it is that we are currently not going down this, or not proposing to go down this route.
Well, the answer is quite simple why we haven't gone down here, because council has, every time it's come to council, council has agreed not to put more traffic meters in. That's the reason there's no.
Yeah, we're going around in circles, because that's exactly what I thought the situation was. But now the CEO is telling us that we haven't really done this research.
Through Your Worship, if I could perhaps clarify what I was meaning. We haven't presented a detailed report or business case to council for some time. One of the reasons for that is that council have not in recent times displayed any great enthusiasm to even want to go to that space. We can pull together a report, a business case quite quickly, and we would have done had there been any enthusiasm to do it. I mean, the last time I understand council had a discussion around paid parking was in relation to what was happening in the mall. And that certainly didn't generate any great enthusiasm to want to extend that out to the broader community. But look, we can do the work, we can have it ready to go. That's not a question.
So, Your Worship, just to follow, I think that would be a good move for us to have the information to address these comments, pro and con, from the public.
And I support a review of that. I mean, these days technology has shifted in the time too. So you've got, all the license plate vehicle recognition, you've got mobile technologies, you've got all sorts of other things, and even public-private partnerships that we could be exploring in terms of some of these things to, if there are any infrastructure costs. I definitely support a review of that in a business case coming back to us.
Councillor William?
I understand reasons behind it. But it isn't working in the mall. No one parks in the mall. People go down to Queensgate, right? And unfortunately, we're all in this together in our town, and you put paid parking in there, you have less businesses in Lava Hut. But I do support the actual activation of moving car parks around and freeing them up. And that's probably the way to go at this stage, especially in this LGP. When we talk about this LGP, that's what we're here.
Well, we'll have a discussion about pros and cons when we get the information, all right? Councillor Bentley? No? Councillor Holder? Oh, yeah, he's back.
I didn't have anything to say, but I'll chip in anyway. I support Councillor Newell on this.
Okay. Councillor Holder?
I was just going to respond to Councillor Wheeler and say, part of the pushback that came from the mob was a really poor public engagement piece around that. And a lot of people have responded and said that they would not, in fact, be opposed to it if it hadn't been done in the way it was done. And I think that we as a council could certainly do a far better job of stakeholder engagement, public awareness and all of that kind of thing to start to shift our policy on that.
Councillor Heaven?
Yeah, no, I totally disagree. People do not like to pay for parking. You know? And you even take a look at the hospital, it's had parking forever. People still are all down Pilmuir Street and all around there because they just don't like the concept of parking and then going and having to pay more money at a shop. So the mall just has not worked, and it had nothing to do with they just put it in and people said, we will park somewhere else because we can. Nothing will really happen until regional council do start to do a park and ride charge, because then that'll force us to do something, because our car parks will be I think we're about 80–90% now, are we not? Well, now that'll just oversubscribe, and we'll have to look at something then. And probably the same way as they've started to have two different types of that. But I can't see it working until then.
Okay, 520.
Your worship, I'd like to, 515, Rosanna. Hut Science funding is an excellent initiative growing scientific literacy in our young people. I know that other councils do that. Do we do that? And it certainly feeds into, minds, great minds, opens up pathways.
Innovative young minds.
That's the one.
No, it's Hutt City Council.
Well, we were involved in that original, but part of it is pulling out.
Yeah, could I? It would just be nice to know what the cost would be if we were to bring it back. Only because innovative minds, future development, those sorts of things. I'd just like to know what it would cost.
More money,
I know, but I just think that it would be,
development.
Would go into grass.
Just what, can I point out?
Yeah, of course.
520, you're looking at science.
Yeah. No. It's like a pack that goes into schools.
Well, we were funding that.
Yeah,
we were.
Through your wish, we were funding Hutt Science.
Yeah.
And then, so we were paying Hutt City $50,000 a year in 4 payments.
Right.
And the schools had either a gold, silver or bronze membership, and that determined how many taps they got per week. And there was teacher training, etc. around it. We have taken that away. We've let the schools know. Hutt City is ceasing that as of the end of this year, and we are ceasing that the Hutt Science Initiative at the end of this financial year, which is June.
Okay, I just wanted to ask a question. So happy, just want to start, yeah.
Submissions 521 to 540.
Once again, you wish on 535, Daniel Mitchell, it would be good to respond that there is a representative review.
Yeah.
On that one. And on 544, is that we go? It's about the burials at Akatarawa. Interesting concept that we lease the plots for 99 years and then we recycle them. I'm not so keen on that, but I am. I don't know. But I am quite keen to see natural burials. Looking at natural burials.
Just through you, Your Worship. Yes, and we, as officers, we've picked up on the feedback around natural burials as well, and we'll be looking at that as part of what we discussed earlier on.
Right, and another thing is that there are some cultures that like their people buried standing on their feet.
Yes, there are.
Yeah, so would that be part of it as well? Because we're having quite a diverse community.
We are. To be honest, I hadn't considered burying people standing upright. But yes, I can't see why we wouldn't be considering being inclusive.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor.
Thank you. Through you to the director. Would that be something that you can bring back in that paper to pick up, certainly on the options around the time that people have their internment for, as an option? I know that in other countries they are looking at 30 maybe, time allotted spaces, and then they get their bodies exhumed, bones are then buttoned up and put into a smaller lot. Coming back to that.
Through you, Your Worship, I'm keen just to get the current piece of work back to the Joint Services Committee to get that resolved, given as per the comment earlier on how out of date it is. As to whether we, as part of that work, investigate some of the issues that you've just raised. I want to have a conversation with our project team on that, just to see if that's within scope, because I'm mindful that, you know, we're now down to about 6 weeks before that comes back to the committee, and so just ideally don't want to grow the scope at this point, but absolutely hearing what you say in terms of future work that could be done in that area as well.
Thank you.
Okay, submissions 541 to 560. We now move to submissions 561 to 580.
570, Your Worship.
570.
About the change the speed limit between American and Flyers and Akatara, even though it's a state highway too, and not our responsibility. I would like to see us advocating that it be reduced down to 50 K, but not up to Timaru. That's a stretch too far, but certainly from American Flyers to Akatara, and because also there is no pedestrian crossing on that stretch as well, and there's a lot of activity going on there. I'd like a clear response rather than just say it's not our responsibility, it's state highway too. I'd like to see something positive back and council taking some positive accuracy or lobbying NCTA on this matter, or the regional road traffic transport committee.
She's made note of that.
Yeah, because it's a health and safety issue, Your Worship.
Submissions 581 to 600. And in submission 601 to 639. Councillor Hammond, yes?
Yes, 612. I've read that, and I'd just like to see if this guy's got anything, not this person, sorry, has got anything, if they are correct, if there'd be 9 million savings in what he's saying. I've sort of look, I haven't got anything else to go on. Is there a way to see if there's any merit in what's been said on submission 612?
For your worship, I haven't actually looked at 612, but everything that's come in, we have tested.
Right.
So,
Yeah, there's some heavy stuff there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I'm happy to share.
So I suppose, Your Worship, the question there then of the director is, if you have in fact tested some of these proposals, we just need to make sure that there is an indication in the response that we have actually done that. I think that's great to hear.
For you, Your Worship, some of them don't, it's not doable.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we have to say that we've tested, and I think that's great.
Okay. So are there any other comments or submissions anyone wants to make? Yeah.
So we go to the other general items and or comments, which I don't know what page. It's agenda item 5, attachment to page 39 here of 245. So there are some things in here that I'd like to ask, and we've already discussed the burials, but Councillor Ultra brought up the cap policy, and maybe we just need to put that into looking at what other councils have done around that, particularly with this Kiwi now coming closer to us. And under the funding for Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce, I'm not keen on paying them 2 FTEs, which was their suggestion. And I'm actually not sure the value that we get being a member of the Chamber of Commerce at either 42 or 45,000 a year.
What page were you on?
Under 48.
Sorry?
248. Sorry, it comes under other general items, Your Worship, and comments and those. What page? 248?
Was that submission 240?
No, page
248.
It's where the officers have picked up other comments that weren't talked about. And there's some in there for Helen's team implementing water meters as the time that they build as part of the consenting, so that, you know, the business case that we're going to do, if it ends up that we've got to do it. Those are sort of things that, and under the integrated transport system, I don't think it's clear that people know that actually in a lot of the decisions that we make as a roading team, we do put that lens over some of the decisions, and maybe we need to tell people that that's what we do. So it's not specifically an integrated transport system per se strategy out there, but it is part of the consideration that we make there. Those were kind of some of the things that were brought up that were spoken about that I'd like us to look at.
Yeah, and that's been notes made.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Councillor Ultra.
I also wonder if we can add a note into the long-term plan about Perry C's Timberley Railway Station development, like just to acknowledge it there. I mean, obviously we can't allocate funding towards it, but at least if, I don't know, if Greater Wellington or Kiwi Rail or anything were going to pick up on it, and what would it mean for us at council if they did? So just keep it open as a discussion.
Well, we're going to have, we're looking at what we're going to do with the park here anyhow, so.
Whether there'd be housing there and zone changes.
Ask council to, ask staff to look at that, so they'll come back to us. Okay.
And Your Worship, there was a submission in here about selling some of our land assets. Maybe we should acknowledge that it is something that we're looking at and working on. It just lets the community know that we are being quite prudent, and whilst we may not have articulated everything in all of those documents, they need to know that we are looking at other avenues to help support.
Okay, let's now move back to point 3. We're comfortable, happy with that. And that point 3 there, we received a report titled Deliberations on the Long-Term Plan. Acknowledge the submissions received and thank all the submitters. Note the deliberations decision made at this meeting as it applied to the final long-term plan. Note the changes that
we're on page
3 up there.
Oh, it's
up there.
The deliberation of the next. Sorry, Your Worship.
Yeah. Up here now, clear? Councillor Carson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to add another recommendation, G, that on the lines of the wording here I've got is that an explanation of the changes between the 221 LTP and the 224 LTP be set out in the 224 LTP document in order to provide an explanation for the reasons for the increased amounts between the two LTP years.
Shall I give a copy of this, please? She's.
Yeah. I would second that.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, just wait for the director.
And just
hang on, Chris. Yeah.
Through you, Your Worship.
Yeah.
To clarify, and it may be a bit inwards between accountants to speak like this, but are you suggesting like a waterfall drawing? So a drop down of here we were, and then each thing?
Yeah, I can respond to that. See that one on Simon's, which is the erase of all those areas. Something on that with some brief bullet points explaining the major why it's majorly gone, but also explaining our liquidity problem and the need to balance the budget. And I think that needs to be more clearly articulated somewhere up front in the document. We heard repeatedly from submitters that they didn't understand the need for the rate increases. They didn't really understand because they didn't go back to the detailed document, and there was no explanation of why the figures jumped from 221 to 224. So I think we owe it to the community to explain all that somewhere in the LTP document quite clearly.
I think if we go to page 183 under debt, pulling some of that language that you've got there, would be very helpful, because this is a huge document that I'm sure a number of our people in the public didn't get the opportunity to read. So it's para 67, 68, 69, 70. Yeah, and then you've also got the depreciation. So in there, they wouldn't have had the opportunity to read this. So this is kind of some of the explanation that Councillor Carson is looking for, just to give you a bit of a steer.
And the table too, with some bullet point explanations of why things have gone up. Not just between the two LTP documents.
Brilliant, thank you. I was also looking that we bring forward some of this information that went out of this consultation, for example, significant assumption 12 around the credit rates.
Yes.
And the need to keep liquidity for
all those sort of things right up front of the document.
So now with the added item G.
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Carson.
Your Worship.
Yep. Second,
I can't see the screen.
Oh.
Right.
Is there a way for me to see that or have it read out?
Okay.
Hang on.
I think that.
No, it's the same, it's in the paper, just that G says an explanation of the changes between the 2021 long-term plan and 2024 long-term plan is set out in the 2024 long-term plan in order to provide an explanation for the reasons of the increased amount between both long-term plans.
Can I just text it to you?
So moved by Councillor Carson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Swales. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. It's been carried. Thank you. We now move to the funding decision. Council proceeds with the average yearly rates increase of 8.94% over 10 years.
Just a question here, Little Bishop, and is there any way that we could actually do a little bit more smoothing over years 4 through to 10? other than what we've got out there. I know that that's a big ask, but I was just looking at the 2 years at the 19.93, 90.93, but then wondering if we could smooth out from year 4. Happy with the 13 that we're going down to in year 3, 13.89. But if we could smooth out years 4 to 10.
That's going up to 10 anyway, because
Yeah.
it's bringing back the grant.
I know, but
Through your worship. We can always look, we can look at it. I am very mindful of the commitment to achieve a balanced budget in year 6. And we have already stretched our cumulative balanced budget beyond year 10 in doing this smoothing. So we are, we have to take into those ideas into consideration.
can I ask another question, Your Worship? So with the Standard and Poor's report that was circulated to us around our watch and credit rating, with what we've done and what we've suggested here, that doesn't put that in jeopardy in any way, shape or form, do you think, by dropping the 3rd year? Because I'd like to think that it doesn't. No, that's ugly.
That's part of what through.
Yeah.
That's part of what we must consider when we do this.
We do.
And certainly in the early years, our liquidity, we believe we're pushing as hard as we can. So like I say, of course, we can take it away and think about years 4 to 10, but the early years, we believe we've pushed that as hard as we can, given this council is now on negative watch.
Right. And Your Worship, I think that's important to have that conversation at this meeting now. For those people that are possibly listening to us live or those that are in the room, to have an understanding that actually, you know, it's more than just what we've put in the document and the supporting document, but the consequences of or the repercussions of what happens if we were to move those first 2 years. And I'm really grateful that the officers have come back with that reduction in the 3rd year, because it shows that we have listened, but it also shows that, you know, there is a rationale of why we are nervous and why we have to leave it where we have for the first 2 years. Yeah.
Okay, so that'll come, yes, Councillor Cass said that'll come as part of the explanation. We now have the funding decisions, which is number 4. Do we have a mover? Councillor Griffiths, seconded by Councillor Carson. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. It's been carried. We then go to item 5, which is the funding decisions.
Feel like I'm swallowing your rat.
Well, we've been through the rationale and worked our way through it.
I'm bold enough to move this because when we started this journey, I was always under 20%, and this is under 20%. So I'm happy to move.
I'll second.
Okay, well, we've got Councillor Holderness.
Okay.
So it's Councillor Deputy Mayor Swales moved, seconded by Councillor Holderness. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. It's been carried. And then finally, we have the number 6, where we agree the internal debt limit.
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Newell, seconded by Councillor Hammond. Put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
The contrary, no. It's been carried. And with that, thank you. I thank everyone. Thank all the submitters.
Gee.
No?
We did the rest earlier.
Yes. And thanks submitters, and thanks staff for all the hard work, and thank you councillors. And I close the meeting.